floor with LPs.
Yeah.
So
I would like-
you want that one? You want that one? Splitting up the LP, yeah.
I would like to call to order the Tuesday, November 12th meeting of the City of Monona City Council Committee of the Whole Review of the 2025 Operating Budget. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Moore.
Here?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Rodemacher. Here. Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Alder DePula is not here. Mayor O'Connor.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, as we all know, the referendum passed, so this will be a more pleasant experience than we originally thought it might be. We're going to start out with a budget overview from Finance Director Hotaker. Mark, if you'd like to,
Yeah. There it is.
I don't know if there's any pages you'd like us to refer to, or,
Yeah, I'll go to that page 7. It's probably
okay.
I just kind of want to start with kind of the process that we took with this referendum budget. There's going to be a slide in here. If you go to slide slide 7.
That one, Mark?
So, 1, 2 before that. So when we did the referendum, it passed. These were the categories that was part of the $3 million compensation plan, the wages, other personnel costs were related to the overtime, non-personnel safety, that's all under the premise, which is the fire department. That's included in here. Non-personnel is estimated about 10%. The assessment inspection, so that means now we're going to do walkthroughs. So that's part of that increase. We shifted stuff from the capital to the operating. Additional training costs, police and fire, additional maintenance costs, some departments, some contracted services. Before, garbage and recycling was, we used fund balance last year to balance it, because we had a new contract, if you remember, roughly about $175,000. So this puts it back on the tax roll and not taking it off as a special charge, additional IT expenses. So when we start building this budget, these were the things we're looking at with the referendum numbers. So this is kind of like our starting point on how we built the budget. We started back earlier in the year, I don't remember, probably kind of going through all this. And accumulated right before we met with, all the department heads met with the mayor, myself and Neil, kind of went through their budgets, what the referendum budgets looked like and other budgets at that time. Had a good understanding where we were. Once the referendum passed it, this is the one we're presenting tonight. So if you go to the very beginning, kind of budget summary, 2 down from there. They can't hook me up to that. That's why Neil has that.
Just easier.
Oh,
It's
okay.
easier to do it this way.
So there are going to be some, if you go to page 7, it's going to be kind of where all this information is coming from. So the overall property tax, there's a box on page 7. Overall property tax went up $2,740,414, or 28.24%. So the overall tax, property tax is $12,444,840. We're allowed to increase our levy to the operating portion to $8,374,022. So, but if you kind of look in that box, just kind of want to talk about this. If you look at the box where it says city property tax levy, it's $5,442,008.24, and then the 2025 number, and it only shows $2,932,000. There's a weird way now. We got to capture the 4 through 3 million. It was weird because we had to reduce the 24 budget number by this new aid we get from the state called personal property taxes, because personal property taxes are no longer tax. So technically the 5,442,000 is, there's a number that's subtracted, so I couldn't really show it very well. It's just kind of explain it, but the state told us, per referendum, the max we could go to is 8,374,022, but we did capture the full $3 million. We'll talk about the revenues, where that number is and how that, where that's at. So with that, as you're all aware, debt service is exempt from the levy limit. We did look at stuff, how to balance it this year, to kind of keep it the same as last year. I actually decreased it by $191,600. We did use fund balance, some transfers to balance it. The library expansion debt service, basically $75,000 was paid off, so that's part of that number. So it did go down overall. If you kind of go to page, if you're looking on your books, page 11 is kind of where the mill rate is. The mill rate is 6.8 per thousand, up from last year 5.99, or an increase of $13.5%, an increase of 81 cents from the prior year. These numbers are all going to be increased, because of the referendum. That'll be a one-year large increase. The average property tax increase is $696. Why it's down from the number we were showing in the referendum is because debt service is down. So that's why it's not the 716 that people are expecting with that. If you go back to page 7, it kind of talks about the total expenditures. Total expenditures are $20,945,000, up by 22%. Again, the majority of that's related to the referendum. Taxes without the city levy is also up. So there's a $1,438,000 increase, or 20.27% in there with that.
Mark,
Yeah.
on the third bullet point, total expenditures are increased 3.8 million. So the referendum was 3.
Yeah.
What's the rest? Is that utilities or?
Some is debt service. It'd be debt service is that. That went up, even though the overall expenses went up, but we're balancing with, like we talked about, fund balance.
Okay.
Mark, is expenditures actually, so
That's a reason.
is it 20 million, so 3.7, the total expenditure, so the overall expenditures was 20.9 million?
Yeah.
Okay, which is 3.7 million
Yeah.
more than 24, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all on page 7. In that box we're looking at.
Mark, could you tell me again, the median house tax increase went down from 713 to what?
696, because we didn't use the full 3 million. 'Cause if you look at that box, we didn't go to the full amount to balance the debt service. So there were some decreases there, so it helped offset some of that. So,
Got it, thank you.
some of the revenue changes, we'll go over the revenues tonight. So it was kind of personal property tax increased by 102,000. This is the one where the state, it's brand new for this year. It's state aid because they no longer are taxing personal property. So our share they gave us each from here on out will always be 102,000. State share revenue did increase by almost 8,000. Part of that gets the increase because a little bit of sales tax. The balance goes up in the coffers from the state, and they divvy it out, and ours is only 7,000 or almost 8,000. Expenditure restraint program stays the same. We did reduce court fines by 20,000, boat launch by 5,000. I'll kind of get into all that stuff. We get into the revenues tonight and interest income. Library County aids. We do have a bunch of decreases, but we did increase rec and pool revenues. And EMS revenues decreased too by 40,000. So it does maintain current services. We didn't add any additional services. Referendum increases. I had the slide in there. We kind of talked about what all that is. The non-reps, 3% included in here. Police and fire contracts are currently in negotiations. We'll have that hopefully done. Friday we met with them Monday and Tuesday because they wanted to wait until see what happened. We have another meeting set up for both of them on Friday, so hopefully That'll all be done by Monday. WRS rates did increase a little bit, not a ton, 6.9%, our share to 6.95. Public safety, that increased from 14.3% to 14.95. Health insurance increased by 7%. Again, debt service decreased. Overall fund balance is about 2.5 is projected, or 26% for the year.
Mark, does that include the money we have to set aside for future years?
It does include that, yeah.
Okay.
I did it that way because
When you say, that number does not include the 870,000.
it does, that
It
one
does.
does.
But I mean, that's not why it's, is that why it's 2.5 now?
Yeah, yeah. Because I talked to our financial advisors, and they talked to kind of, because that was going to be an issue with S&P, so they said, well, you should include that in as this year's, as that fund balance number.
But we're always going to have to keep in mind that we
Yeah.
can't
I mean, we
spend
still,
a portion of the
we
fund
are
balance.
using some fund balance, and we still probably could use another, I mean, even if I would back that out, we still would be over 20%.
Over
So we probably got
20%.
another 200 if needed or so to use.
But your point is correct, Mayor, we need to save that for our 5 years.
Yeah.
But that's
Going
all,
forward for
that's all
increases
accounted
going
for.
forward, yep.
Right, but
Yeah,
it'd be nice to know what the,
I can get that number.
The actual percentage and dollar
Yeah,
number?
it's 21%.
right, yeah.
Yeah. It's 21%?
21%.
I'm sorry, Nancy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would actually suggest
Back it out.
that we have that as 2 bullet points and that it's clearly designated
Yeah.
in the budget documents, because I don't want that
Sure.
to get muddied in any way. I think our public, our community would like to know.
Yeah. We did use, it says 24 budgets. If you skip the, I mean, we went over the referendum, it should say 25, but we did use, go back, we did use 200,000 of fund balance, and that's already been included in that rationale already. If you go to the next graph. So this is expenditures by departments. So if you look at here, this is all the different expenditures by each, general government, admin. General government's kind of like your insurance and assessments and things like that. Admin are more the salaries, building, police and dispatch, fire, and so on. As you can see police and dispatch and fire and EMS, kind of the bigger ones in pool and rec. If you go to the next one, so this is the expenditures net of revenues. So this is really where you're kind of your property taxes going to in reality. So the biggest one is, it should say police and dispatch. So police and dispatch is majority of your expenses, and then fire and EMS. Others is a little bit misleading because that's some fund balance numbers and some transfers. Library, EMS are the next biggest, and if you go to the third last one, it's P Park, Rec and Community Center, and the pool is also included in there. You can see how far before it was so high with the before revenues. They're one of the lower ones, so we are offsetting the rec budget with fees and revenues. So this in general is kind of a picture of where majority of your taxes are being spent on.
Mark, what's that first bar? I can't
General
read.
government, so that's going to be like your insurance, your assessments, some of just your general things you have to pay for. There's probably more in here I can name. IT's in there too. So those are kind of the things that make up that number. Admin would be the clerk, myself, Neil, and you guys are mainly make up those in there. So that's kind of a snapshot. If you're looking at the cuts, that's, you'd have to cut. It would have been the smaller ones would have bigger problem. Police and dispatch, it's where your money is being spent in reality. If you want to go to the next one. Always going to be a challenge. It's just a standard one, the new construction. But with the referendum, it takes us out to 2029. I can imagine, just based on some of the projections I'm looking at and just where we're at, I think we'll be fine past 2029 personally, but, some disaster happens that there's, not aware of. It's something always weird, another COVID or something could always screw those plans up. But in reality, we're going to be fine to 2029 and beyond for a little bit, so.
Is it easy to summarize why you feel that way?
Just
Because of the construction and that's already
the
started?
new construction, I think what we did this year, we kind of got everything where we're at and where we need to be, and hopefully, inflation's starting to come down. As long as there's not an inflation of 10% or 8% to 10.
Sure.
But I think, we've dealt with budgets before, it's always been tight, but I think we're at a good point. Now that we're kind of where we're supposed to be, that we're able to manage it for the next couple of years. We have that money set aside for the next couple of years. I know the guys, department heads, they manage it very well, so they stay within our budget constraints. But that's my gut feeling on that. I would stake money on it, unless something major happens. If you want to go to the next one, there is no water rate increase. We did get a large increase from Madison Metro Sewer District, about 8% increase. So they pass that on to us. And there's a small one in the sewer rate, I can put in there, it's about 2% in the stormwater rates. It's included in the budget. But yeah, this Madison Metro, we don't control that. That's, they pass it on.
We try.
Lower than it was, actually,
Yeah.
which is,
Well, it was
still pretty high.
It was over 80,000 increase.
And it looks like it's going to continue that way for the next several years.
I don't know if you want, but I know the city and other communities are really trying to work with MSD to get that down, but nothing we can do about that. That's just passed on through us, to us from them, so
And do we pass that on
we just pass it on.
to the rate?
Unfortunately, yeah, I mean, they increased it over 80-some thousand, so we have to make up that revenue.
Do we need approval?
It's approval through the budget process.
Through the budget process?
Yeah.
And not through the state?
No. Water is the only one that's required to go through the state process. And we have to do a rate case. So we'd have to come through city council first and ask for permission to even start one.
Doug, did you?
The MMSD rates, are those based on how much water or how much sewage we ship through the system?
Yeah, there's a lot
or
of,
is it-
I wish Dan's not here, but I have him
Okay.
Thursday, but it's a lot of the flow and how much, it does take our usage, but there's also other criteria that are part of
Yeah.
that. So,
I think it's, Alder, I think it's certainly flow, obviously just
Yeah.
mass amount is number one, but the actual content of what's in the flow is also a factor.
yeah.
In
There's a
terms
bunch
of
of
suspended solids and other sorts of treatment, anything. If it's more of an industrial waste stream, there's more things they have to do to it, so the rates are higher. It is a very complicated formula that they use on this. But essentially I think that methodology they use isn't necessarily the problem. I think the problem is really the cause that's causing the increase has really been more of the amount of borrowing that they've been doing in terms of, and then not necessarily completing projects, and then borrowing for more than they're spending, which would adds to fund balance, but you're levying for more than they need to levy for at that point. So
Yeah.
that's causing it to be a little higher. They're also going through some similar to us in terms of, paying, trying to pay for staff in terms of wages, but they're also trying to hire, gosh, I think Mayor, they had 5 to 7 new positions,
Yeah.
I think, in terms of what they were looking at with that.
They have huge infrastructure needs because a lot of it's really old.
And I think the main concern that have been expressing to us is that the access to the Clean Water Fund financing program is dwindling. And they have more concerns that that's not going to be available in the future, so that's going to increase their borrowing costs.
Because they get
So-
cheap loans from there, right?
And that's what keeps their borrowing rates extremely low. So those are some of the factors that they've shared with us in terms of why they're projecting the increases that they're doing. They are also and they're going through hiring a new director right now, executive director. So the Dane County Cities and Villages Association has been working very diligently to kind of express our concerns with they're point blank just putting it out 5, 6, 7 years of 8 to 10% increases, and we're like, guys, we can't do that. rest of our budgets, we can't do that on. You guys need to have some understanding of what your partner communities are going through and try to find a way to make that work. So they do have significant infrastructure to replace, similar to some of the things that we're dealing with here in Monona in terms of a lot of our buildings and infrastructure were built close to the same time. So they're starting to see some useful life issues all kind of happening together. But hopefully there'll be some way to manage that a little bit and spread those out a little bit so we're not kind of paying the freight all in one shot, so.
And there's also tons of new development, of course, going on
Yeah.
too. So that's,
I mean, that's, I always wonder how much we're subsidizing development in
Right.
the outlying areas.
They're pretty, again, without getting really into the
Yeah.
real deep dark details, they do assess those new projects pretty directly to those new communities in terms of those costs.
The startup.
Pretty successfully,
The
yeah.
hookup cost is. it's pretty-
Yeah, so it is pretty significant to
The
get an
flow
approval.
stuff, it's
Yeah.
the one thing I think, I know even Dan, you always wonder what their data is.
and we put all that money into I&I, and is that,
Well, yeah, and I know Dan's been working with, I know you guys have been working with them a lot, trying to, with the overall big picture.
Yeah.
But I know Dan's been trying to figure out their flows and if it makes sense. It's something we're concerned about, not just say, hey, here's 8%. We've been
Yeah, obviously, from
back and forth, back and forth with them.
a use standpoint, when the number of gallons is your main basis for your revenue stream, it's actually counterintuitive for them to be working on trying to reduce flows
Oh.
from some on
Right.
some level. So it's certainly better for the system. It's better for the actual, it makes the treatment more effective, but it also can affect their revenues.
Yeah.
So which ends up affecting the rates. So
Yeah, so it is kind of crazy because to be honest, our usage is fairly similar from year to year. And that's what's
Mhm.
frustrating. You get this $80,000, say, hey, you
Yeah.
guys are going to be increased 80,000. Our usage is exactly the same almost year to year.
and
So-
didn't it decrease a lot, because what?
It has
Duncan
decreased,
Dickinson
it's,
left or
yeah,
whatever?
so, and that's where I know, we're not just the city of Monona, it's
right.
it's frustrating with, even city of Madison
Yeah,
is even.
literally every partner community has expressed concerns over
Yeah.
the projected increases. So it's something we're going to be continuing to keep an eye on and work with them to try to get some things under control, I think, so.
And weren't there actually some public works projects like E&I,
I don't know.
I&I
Mhm.
infiltration is something
Yeah,
that,
that's our,
that would have, it kept our
That's
prices
why
low.
we do it.
that's why we've
Right.
been doing it.
Yeah.
So, we're doing everything we
And that sometimes
Yeah.
might be, the the usage going down, they still got all their,
Then they gotta
Expenses.
jack up the revenue that
to
they're.
meet,
Yeah.
to meet their, it's, it's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
a shell game in the end somehow, to be honest. So,
I have one question.
Okay.
You showed a slide a couple back about interest income going down
yeah.
111,000.
Yeah, and I'm just, probably a little aggressive this year, but I'm kind of, want to bring that down so it's not an issue over the next 4 years. And, they're talking about another rate cut coming, some other more, a bunch in 2025, so I'm kind of anticipating that, so we can bring that down, so it's,
You want to bring interest down?
well, just because the rate cuts are coming, they've been talking about the federal level.
Oh, right.
So then it's eventually going to come back, we can starting to see they've just made a rate cut just recently.
Oh, I see.
So they're starting to come, they talked about another one coming here fairly soon.
Okay.
So
You're
it's-
projecting for next
I'm
year.
projecting, and I'm projecting that it's going to keep on going down and down, so I kind of want to get that
Okay.
down.
Yeah. Good news is our borrowing could be more
Yeah.
affordable, but the
Okay.
bad news is our
Well,
interest income
It is
won't
probably
be
a
as high
little more
either.
than it probably should be this
Yeah.
year, but it's just more anticipation, and kind
Okay.
of want to get to a point where
Got it. Okay. So that's, you're projecting that our bond rate, that our interest rate on
Mhm.
money that we held in the bank account
Yeah,
will go down.
eventually, it's going to, they're starting to, banks are starting to change their rates, and it's going to be coming.
But this is actually money that we earn interest on that
So
you're
it's our
talking
fund
about,
balance
that
account.
number.
Right.
So all the
we're
money
gonna
we have
earn
in fund,
less.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, that 2 million in fund balance and some other accounts, that's where it's making interest on.
Got
And
it.
unspent proceeds and things that adds up.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I have a question.
Nancy?
Just going back to net new construction, since I know that's always,
Yeah.
as you said, a challenge. What's the lag time between the completion of a project certificate of occupancy, and when we can recognize if in fact there is any kind of net? Is it
They usually say 3 years. Just to kind of
3 years?
I think built 1 year, assessed the next year, taxed the next year. There's in general terms. So
So a
So
project,
bloom won't happen to 20, well, I should say, so bloom would be 2026 if it's, so bloom's already started. So it gets 2.5, depends what we're signing now. but-
yeah, but 2.5 to 3 is
Yeah.
so for instance, if, let's just take North Point, since I know they're due to be done at the end of this year. So
That'd be your 26 budget. for that.
So it would be, we would see a net new construction number in the 26
Yeah.
budget.
Because they were in a hurry to get that one done, so.
Mhm.
Right.
But like bloom, they won't see that until 27.
Right,
And North Point won't be as assessed as high, right?
sure.
right.
It won't be assessed
So
as
we
high.
won't have as
Sure.
big a
Mhm.
net
But
construction
really, I
as we
mean-
might.
Kudos to them. I mean, I know they get some, with the federal grants, they had to get it done by a certain date.
Right.
So they didn't drag it out. They put some-
Yeah, I'm just saying though, at the end,
Mhm.
Yeah.
if that was a market rate
Yeah,
project, we'd be getting it would affect
Sure.
our net new
Yeah.
construction more, right?
yeah, like basically won't be to 27 too.
Sure. Yeah, because base is going to be done, well, it'll be done by the end of 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
long.
And I think that's why certainly
Timing's a
staff,
year. Timing's a big number.
I think that's why staff and council and CDA gets a little twitchy sometimes when projects take longer.
Yeah.
Because it takes a while for that clock to catch up and actual
It
forever
really
to be
throws us
generated.
off, yeah.
Especially in TIF districts that can cause significant issues if delays go too long, so.
Right.
Regarding the question on the table, it was, how long does it take before we start to see the benefits of new construction, right?
Yeah.
That was the question on the
Yeah.
table. So you
Mhm.
build it,
Yeah.
what was it?
Build
You
it,
tax it,
assess it.
assess it, and tax
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
3
mean, if you
years.
start in January, if you start building, I mean, could move it up.
2.5 to 3.
Yeah,
It all depends when they start building.
Sure,
If
sure.
they- Later in the year, then it's gonna be a little later. If it's
Yeah.
earlier in the year, maybe you can capture it quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
When nobody wants to build in January, they dig into the ground. What they do.
Anything else for Mark? Okay, I think it's IT on page 43 is next up.
Hi, everybody. Okay, IT, page 43. I'll just sort of give you the,
Could you
Yep.
introduce your friend there?
oh, I'm sorry. This is Jaron Beglin. He is our IT consultant from Land Tech.
Okay, thank you.
So he's the actual IT guy, so the actual IT questions can go to Jaron. Okay, just sort of a top line, this budget increased by quite a bit. We did factor an increase in the IT budget in the operating referendum, just because our operating costs in IT are just keep increasing and increasing for a couple of reasons. First, IT we just keep needing more and more technology and thus tech support. But also, and we've talked about this for several years now, our IT budget is increasingly affecting our operating budget as opposed to our capital budget, because things that used to be hardware purchases are now annual license purchases that need to be accounted for as an operating expense as opposed to a capital expense. So, first line item, our information tech support line item, we have increased this pretty considerably to $130,000 because of the passage of the referendum. That incorporates a $10 an hour increase from our consultants. That is actually the first increase that they've ever given us since we have been contracted with them since 2012. So, so it's $95 an hour. And so we're budgeting for an increased number of hours of Jaron's time to 26 hours a week of consultant time. The next line item, $90,000, The increases there are just service contract increases, but also cybersecurity increases. We are now spending up to $37,000 a year just on cybersecurity. Oh, gosh. Sorry. And we need it. There was just an article today that Sheboygan experienced a ransomware attack, so that's the second member of our CIVMIC insurance group this year that has been attacked by ransomware. West Allis was the other. The good news is that we're spending a lot of money on cybersecurity, but we have everything in place that we need. Jaren can probably talk a little bit more. You know, we have experienced attempted attacks.
3 of them within the past month, and all of them were mitigated by what we already have in place. What we have put in place over the past year. There were 3 separate attacks, and we have, with the managed services through Barracuda, we have been notified in under 10 minutes of time of each account that was hit on those 3 different instances. And we were able to lock everything out, change passwords, run through diagnostics and all that. And so therefore, there was nothing actually done or malicious stuff being able to be done because of what we have put in place.
So you're saying there was an attack and Barracuda mitigated and prevented that?
Yes.
3
3 of
last
them.
month.
I mean, there's
Three of
always,
last month.
Yeah.
there's always attacks. It's like
Yeah.
shocking how frequently it
And
happens.
has that been ongoing, or is this like the first of?
No, over the past year, there's been a number, but there was 3 of them in the past month that was.
Okay.
I'm surprised it's as low as
Relatively
3.
significant. One of them being Mark's account, another one being a dispatcher's, and then the third one was in the senior center.
Yeah.
And do you know anything about who or?
We have IP addresses. I did submit 2 of those to the CISA informant here in Madison with the IP addresses that they were attacked from. Unfortunately, 2 of them were through a VPN in Texas.
Huh.
So seeing the other side of that, unfortunately, I can't see where that was from. But the proper authorities have been notified in regards to cybersecurity threats.
Got it.
What is the next call?
Yeah, yours was New Mexico, and then there was a VPN through Texas. Yeah.
Scary.
Just another quick note on that. At our annual meeting for Cities and Villages, which is our insurance company, obviously, our cyber insurance partners are very concerned about this, and so CIVMIC actually hired, they contracted with a third-party provider to evaluate all of their members' infrastructure. And we had our meeting with them a few weeks ago, and they told us that we have everything in place that they want to see in place. So that's great news, and great job to Jaren on getting that all in place. Next line item, internet service. That's just a TDS increase on that line item. Web maintenance, this is our website, is up to $10,550 a year now in support. And then we also spend $7,500 a year for Archive Social, which archives all of our social media posts, which we need to do for open records. So, and then we've increased our equipment maintenance and repair line item from $10,000 to $15,000. We always spend 100% of that line item every year, just on the stuff that comes up that we don't plan for.
Any questions?
On the info tech support line, does that include an increase in the number of hours as well?
Yes, so we've increased that to 26 hours a week. I think right now we have about 18 maybe?
Yeah, I believe 18.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then there was also training, I believe, that everyone's,
Yep, you probably got those
Yep.
emails as well. So
Yeah.
that's something that we put in place last year that we've been doing.
yeah, that's just included in the overall price.
Yep.
is-
That's
Which is
correct.
super important.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, that is the emails where people are like, well, I didn't click on them because I didn't know. I'm like, no, you need to do the
You
training.
need to do the training.
That was a
like,
legit one, exactly.
we are the weakest link.
Yeah.
Human
Yes.
beings are
Yeah.
the ones that we are the ones that let these things happen, yeah.
Anyone else? Brian?
I'm looking at the department budget overview page, the more narrative.
Oh, yep, yep.
And one of the questions that kind of stands out to me is like, for example, the third one, updating utility for the SCADA hardware and network. So I know on the public works side, they probably have a budget item directly related to that. When we've approved, like, for example, some of the capital purchase around these items, I'm not sure there's always been a direct linkage of like, oh, but we're actually paying out of our IT budget for elements of it. I think there's been an impression of, oh, you're buying this from the vendor and the vendor is installing it and doing all those pieces. I guess I'll speak for myself. I wasn't necessarily directly aware that there was additional cost coming from that capital purchase in public works, for example, that is impacting this budget line item.
That's correct.
And so, for example, those are items that SCADA equipment really is part of the utility. And should that be coming out of here, or should that be reallocated, and maybe that's for Mark, reallocated actually to the utility rather than paying out of the general property tax?
What do you think about that, Mark?
I know Civic Systems is support their county utility billing, so we pay the full amount, and we do charge the utilities. So through a transfer, so we do
I think
charge
he's
it.
referring to it's listed
But do we charge
here.
them for, I think Brian is asking, do we charge the utilities for Jaren's time that he spends
do.
doing that work?
I
Okay,
do allocate it.
Okay. okay,
On his bills, I do allocate it.
Okay,
For
so
Jared's time. And then anything that's for like a fee that, that's, a lot of times the city will pay for it, and then we'll charge the utilities for it, so there's a transfer.
Okay,
in.
okay.
That's what these transfers in are, is for what we're charging for the utilities.
So items that might flow through here if they're being
One
billed to
way
a
that we're
different,
getting captured by the utilities.
they're being billed by a different department, especially a different taxing element
Yeah,
of a department. I just want to make sure we're not
no, we do charge.
Double-
we're captured in one.
double capturing here. Perfect. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Nancy?
Forgive me if I'm just not remembering this, but it says that your projects completed this year included the writing for the $100,000 grant. Did we get that?
we did not get that.
So unfortunately, we did not. I fully applied for it. They came back. There were some of the things that I applied for that was, a hope and a prayer to get, and they declined those immediately. And so some of the things that would have qualified for, we had already implemented.
Okay.
So because they were already implemented, they weren't before the grant was serviced.
Right.
They said that they weren't going to provide funds for it.
So because we were ahead of the game,
Right.
we didn't. get
Which
that.
of course would be the
You're
appropriate
ahead of the
approach
game
for a
and you get
million other
funded.
federal grants. Right?
Right.
We
Right.
do it first and then we get reimbursed.
Yes, right. So because we were proactive, we lost our
Right.
money.
Anyone else? Guess not. Well, thank you both.
Thank you all.
Next up is the Planning Department. Mr. Plowman, Planning, Inspection, CDA, and Renew Monona. Beginning, the planning's on page 97.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Doug.
I'll start off with the planning, kind of running through page 99, just the items there. So first off, the salaries, seeing an increase there post-referendum. That'll be both for myself, but also for Assistant Planner Jepson as well. Certainly appreciative of that. The second item is for a planning intern, just over 10,000. This is a new line item. This was also associated with the referendum. It was not? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
We'll explain that. So
Yeah.
we didn't add a single position to the referendum. What this was is we had some savings from the inspections. So him overseeing the inspections, we kind of just moved that money around. But it's not like new money. It was already budgeted.
Reallocated.
Reallocated, basically. So that was the main thing. It was not part of the referendum. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, thank you. So certainly the intent there is for this position, for this budget, to assist with kind of the general volume of the planning department, allow to some help with administrative tasks, and also to be able to free up both myself as well as Assistant Planner Jepson to be able to take on some more of the workload there, some of the backlog that's there as well. Really, none of the other items on page 99 are changing the sort of the FICA, the retirement, those are all adjusting accordingly. The professional development supplies and Landmarks Commission supplies were all proposed to remain constant. Those have served us well over the last couple of years, and so the proposal was to keep those the same. I certainly welcome any questions.
Teresa?
Clarification on the first line, that's 2 people.
Yes.
That is not one
Person,
person.
2 salaries.
1.5. Not really 2, right?
Correct.
One, yeah, 1.5, right, yeah.
Correct.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Anyone else? Okay, want to move on to, want to do inspections as 69, or, I don't know.
Yes, we can move to that next. Inspections, I'm looking at the justifications on page 71. Again, the salaries, the first line item there is a slight adjustment there. That is based on the referendum. Everything else has remained constant. So we do contract out inspection services, and that would be the building inspection. That'll be through a general engineering company. And that will continue. At this point, we have it Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the mornings, and that is working at this point. We also have them sort of assist with our commercial building inspection, and so that'll be for some of the bigger projects that you see, the Bloom, Besa, some of those things as well. So that's all captured within that. One thing I will say as part of this is sort of from the revenue side, we are looking, and I'm certainly going to be coming back to City Council with a review of the the fee schedule as we do, looking to implement those into 2025. Again, we had come just under 2 years ago with those, with updates, but I think the time is right to bring it back again, just to continue to align us and sort of reflect what our peer communities are doing and really the true cost of this work as well. So I'll certainly be looking to bring that in and to assist this department as well.
And
There is a mistake. I'll correct it for final. Inspection supply says $4,000. It's actually the STR software annual fee.
oh, that should be under
It's
STR.
pushing the line above it.
Okay.
Oh.
And the GEC also does the inspections for the short-term rentals, right?
They're assisting us with those.
Yeah.
Yes. And we do have those, they're broken out, they have their own line item within the billing, so we'll be able to identify the true cost, certainly as we look to the application fee for that, to really estimate the true cost.
Yeah, okay. Teresa?
I am just curious, what are weights and measures?
It's just like the scanners. So if you go to like a Walmart or whatever measuring thing where they measure, bananas, or they scan some through when you check out those scanners, that's the measuring things on there. They're kind of looking at that. Gas stations, they'll look at the.
Yeah, gas, you'll notice probably most often, Alder, if you go fill up with gas, each
Pumps.
pump should have an actual weights and measures certification from the state of Wisconsin that says that this pump has been inspected and is dispensing, measuring gasoline accurately as it's, yeah, so.
So they
So
bill
it's a
us, and we
fee-
bill,
It's a fee related to.
It's to those
measuring.
inspections, yeah.
Yeah, got
so
it.
they bill us, and we have a revenue source coming in. So they
Got
bill
it.
us, and then we bill the people who got inspected.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Move on to CDA.
Yes.
Page number?
Page,
That is 100.
100 to 102, yeah. Very similar on this one. You can see sort of running through the items. As mentioned, there is the reimbursement for administration. So the couple of the districts, I believe one of the TIDs is covering a portion of the city administrator and my salary. Again, some of the benefits associated with that. 1,000 for professional development. We have Connect Communities membership, which is sort of the alternate to the Main Street program that is put forward, and that has been a useful group to be a part of, just sort of information sharing, and there are some opportunities there for some funding as well through that group, as well as using that for conference memberships or attendance, and I will actually be attending the WIDA conference next week, and I believe that it's coming out of this budget, so a useful source for that as well. And from a revenue standpoint, could you talk to that a little bit more, please?
Revenue is just basically to transfer from the general fund. It's always been there, so we increased that a little bit. Anything that's TIF related, that starts out here, then we reallocate it to all the TIFs. So this budget will vary from year to year. If it's a lot of projects within the TIFs, then we'll reallocate. If it's not in a TIF, then a lot of it comes out of here. So it's really kind of dependent on the activity. More and more now with the new TIFs, it's pretty much all going to be coming out of TIFs. But that's where, if it was a non-TIF, it would come out of here. Like studies done by Gary, it covers the whole city and things like that.
So that's what we use the transfer from the general fund for?
We use the transfer for, it's been there long before us. Before me, the city had this standard where they would transfer it to cover some expenses in there. To cover like the salaries. I mean,
Right.
it's just kind of a shell game a little bit in that one, where it's coming still, we're paying for the salaries, but it's coming out of the city.
We couldn't pay for all that out of TIF?
Not all of it. It's
Okay.
a small amount.
Anyone else? Brian?
A follow-up, are we prohibited from using TIF to cover it all?
We use majority of it for TIF. I mean, 16,000 for a couple people, and some stuff. I mean, we can't use all of it for TIF, no. I mean, you still have to meet the requirements to be a TIF expenditure. Well, we do allocate a lot to the TIFs.
Okay.
I mean, his salary is allocated to TIFs, Neil's, myself, so we do allocate.
But meaning this particular budget area, not everything is eligible to be covered by
Right,
TIF
so-
funds? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what
Yeah.
we were getting at.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
you were channeling Kathy Thomas.
Nancy?
Well, I
I'm
was just
sorry.
gonna say that.
Yeah.
He was channeling
said
Kathy
TIF money.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Can it be covered by TIF?
That's the UNO card.
We're on to Renew Monona then, page 148.
Yes, thank you. So this one, very steady versus 2024 budget, looking at about a $3,000 increase total. I just wanted to share with the City Council, the CDA's policy has been awards up to $250,000 a year total for the Renew Monona Fund. This year, it does not look like we're going to reach that. I think we're at about 150 from memory, so quite a ways below that 250. Last year, we did actually put projects on pause or sort of applications for a couple months because we had met that. So we are looking, CDA sort of had preliminary discussions about possible changes to the program, both for eligibility, but also some of the criteria, some of the elements to the program, I would say. That has been put on hold just with the creation of the new districts, the new TIDs that we're going through, as well as the development projects that we've had. But it is on the radar for this fall, for this winter, to discuss that, and moving into 2025 to look at that. And I would fully expect that, with those changes, we would see a lot more take up again on that project, or on those funds, and really for that to be met and exhausted each year.
Yeah. I believe currently we have about 800,000 left in that fund balance. And I noticed the payback for revenues is 80,000. This year, we're probably estimating about 100,000. So that number is going to keep, you could, if it was a property tax number related, I'd adjust it, but without that, but it's, we'll probably get a renewed Monona payback, which is people paying their loans, a little over 100,000 each year, so we'll adjust that for the future, but yeah. Everybody is current as of this point right now. Thanks.
Everyone is current with
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Anyone have any questions about this or anything else for Doug? Otherwise, we'll send him home.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we're good, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go home and relax.
Yeah. Next up is the library, which is page 110.
I know Ryan's going to scream at me. There is a mistake. I had it right on the non-referendum budget, but I guess the county aid number is wrong.
I wondered about that.
So that needs to be decreased by about 20,000. I have something that's going to increase, will have net effect. Zero, but I'll have that budget amendment. I'll talk about later about that in revenues. But it is off by 20,000 for the net, for the county aid,
So we're getting 20 less. then.
20 left.
Okay.
It's at 178 is what we had on the
I want to say
original,
like
I
it's
think.
178 something.
Yeah.
Seems to be in my head. So.
What line is that again, please?
Second line in for revenues.
County aid for
County
libraries
aid for library
operations,
operation.
which is something that's been going down every year.
Yeah, and that's why our circulation's always a priority, but we've increased that to like number one priority to see what we can do to increase our circulation of physical items. That factors into the formula for the Dane County formula, and our circulation has increased by, I think, I want to say it's like 3.5% this year compared to last year, so it's going up a little bit. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee a reversal, because it's not just like, it's not a look at us performing poorly. It's looking at all the libraries in Dane County and how they're performing using a 3-year rolling average. But as long as we continue to focus on what's within our power, which is really upping our circulation, that should slow that down from decreasing.
I got a question. So it's a 3-year rolling average. Do you get to look at the 3 years?
Yes.
So is the lowest one coming off? Is that what's going on?
Well, we got hit hard because during COVID, for like either 2 or 3 years, they were using 2019 as the number, and just like 2019 for all 3 years. But then now we're jumping ahead. And if you look at our trend, the circulation was going down per year. So rather than having like a slow, the end result is the same, but
Yeah,
it's a big jump now because you're factoring in multiple years of just like kind of hitting it now.
I just know in transportation aids, it's a 6-year rolling average, and sometimes the lowest one goes off and the number spikes after that.
Oh, in time, once we are able to get it up, so yeah, but you figure that'll be like 4 to 5 years away.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to go over the operating budget for the library, focusing on differences between this coming year and this current year. The numbers are the same up until I'm looking at professional development, which is 134. That's one I had to reduce over time, asking for a $1,000 increase. We've been doing our best to keep our staff up to date, using a lot of like free webinars, but really the quality professional development that's out there is getting more expensive as well. We've reduced the amount of like conferences that we go to, for example, which I think is okay to kind of maintain that, but it is good to have at least one staff member go to
a conference and see how we can do that in the most fiscally responsible way, which frankly would be, bless you, would be like going to the state conference versus a national conference, and maybe looking to see how we can use some other dollars in order to send a staff member once every few years to a national conference. When you go to those conferences, you're among other professionals discussing really the trends, what's happening, also problem solving current challenges. It is a great benefit to the libraries of those staff members that go. So that's why I'm asking for that increase, to see if we can get back into that swing. Again, we're doing the best we can, but I do know we're kind of behind a little bit when it comes to current trends. The next increase would be gas and electric utilities. That's just due to the cost for those have been going up over time.
Just if you look at the prior history and why it's a big jump, we're assuming the solar issue. So it depends where that ends up with the roof replacement issue that we talked about.
Thank you, Mark. And Mark, could you please remind me, so again, with the water and sewer utilities, that's a big jump as well, because halfway through this year, it's the public fire.
Public fire, you weren't getting charged for it, we have to charge you.
Yeah, so the library's being charged like everyone else, and our rates went up significantly, so we will be over this year with our water rates, so this increase is to make it so that we do not go over next year. We have an increase in service contracts. Again, that's just due to people's pricing going up incrementally with inflation. Same with auto circulation system rental. Really, that's just our regional library system contracts. So the South Central Library System, there's a small increase, primarily usually around the technology area that we're trying to budget for that increase. And the next would be outside services. So that is, I've received quite a few complaints about the look of the library, the outside of it. Historically speaking, we have had a group of volunteers that have devoted their time and energy in trying to maintain the grounds of the library. And frankly, that group has aged out, and we have not been able to recruit additional people to do that. Along with that is, I don't know if you've noticed when you walk into the lower level, which is the main entrance of the library, you get somewhat of a like Amazon rainforest vibe with all the spider webs. We used to do kind of a like every other year, every 3 years, a contract with someone that would get rid of the spider webs and put up like essentially a poison to keep them away. Well, two things. One is their rates, last time we checked, which was in 2019, the rates doubled. And two, it wasn't very effective. It would keep the spiders away for about like 3 to 4 months, because we live by a lake and there's a lot of spiders. And frankly, on a personal note, I'm not wild about poisoning outdoor wildlife, which I include spiders, but neither here nor there. I've received several complaints about this, specifically with the spiders, but also just with all the weeds and the lack of maintenance of the outdoor area. So that line item is in there to see if we can improve the look of the library that we take great pride in. Office supplies, we've been going over significantly. A lot of that supplies actually is with SCLS that the contract does not cover, but if we need new library cards, new materials that go with the technical services of getting books ready to go out to the public, they get pretty battered. We need a lot of repair tape, that kind of thing, and those costs have also gone up. Janitorial supplies have gone up, again, just due to cost. Our programming, we're asking for an increase. We've seen our programming numbers continue to go up. We've found a lot of successful programming. I believe that this is a community that really likes our programming for all ages, whether it is children's, teens, tweens, or adults. And along with that is that we try to hire quality performers when we can and when it makes sense, depending on the topic of the program. Those performer costs have gone up significantly, especially in post-COVID.
Do you still get funding from the Friends for programming?
We do get some funding for the Friends, yes, that would supplement this. Our maintenance we're asking for a significant increase because this building has received quite a bit of maintenance in the last couple of years, especially this year. Pardon me, one of our maintenance line item I want to say is at like 298% right now. The year's not over. I keep knocking on wood, but I also keep getting invoices for more maintenance to be done. It's an older building. Even though I know people like to remind me that we have the quote-unquote newest building. One thing, that is just the addition, and two, it's now over 20 years old. And the original library is from 1967. I know you all have heard about the library roof and the concern there, trying to take care of that. You all have also approved with the HVAC project, which I'm immensely grateful for, and that has improved, but we are still also getting more issues with, I would say, HVAC adjacent issues.
And we still have more work we know we need to do with HVAC.
Correct, yeah, the lower level is
And what's the one thing we just paid?
well, there's a $4,000 invoice that was done with something to do with the water lines freezing, and then it popped a thing and is draining water. They had to come in immediately to take care of that. That was $4,000. And we just got a $1,200 one where there's a gasket next to one of the units on the roof, where currently, since it's out, our study rooms are not receiving any heat, as well as the teen area and part of the quiet reading room. So it's pumping out 52-degree air. While that continues to get colder outside, that does not make for a very comfortable space to sit in over time. And just those two, that's $5,200 is, if you can see, is.
So basically, the year-end estimate is not correct, it's lower. That was based on at the one time.
Yeah.
So the 24 estimate, and we did add, it was also, I don't know if you remember, some of the reference number was for building maintenance, so some of that money was put into here, and some of we just knew that number it's just going and going, so we added some extra money in there. So your 10% went over that because, a lot of that, because we were doing it after your budget.
Correct. Thank you.
So we had to correct it.
For periodicals, well, actually it's AV, so essentially that's just like the movies, music, but especially,
I was going to change that.
excuse me, kits and talking books, as they're called. Those prices are increasing as well, but they are still popular items that we want to keep refreshing our collections with. And then increasing the adult books by 2,000. I want to say this is the first time the collections has been increased through this process. And as I mentioned with the Dane County formula, I'm really trying to do my best to up our circulation. The best way to do that is to have a fresh collection and, frankly, a larger collection. I believe we are the smallest, if not one of the smallest, collections in the Madison metro area. A lot of the libraries will have like 6, 7 copies of popular titles. We're not going to do that, but we are looking at possibly changing things up where we have maybe 3 copies of very popular titles that we can figure out that those copies are going to be in very high demand, but otherwise just really filling out our collections to make sure that people who come here and browse our shelves will find the items that they need and not go to Penny, which is about 1.5 miles down the road.
How much additional money do you get from the Book for Life funds for books?
That changes per year.
It's fairly substantial, though,
It
isn't
is substantial. So I actually just got approval from the foundation board last night. So the Book for Life disbursement for 2025 will be $9,000.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's the part of the foundation that we did a big fundraising thing for
Yeah.
15 years ago now.
But a
Yeah.
lot of the funding that and not like the majority, but for example, we did have a situation this year where one account, we had about $1,000 in fees for like loss or damage items from one account. And they paid the $1,000, but that doesn't go then immediately to purchase more items. That goes in just in our general revenue. So that's $1,000 worth of items that we are down essentially, and we have to look at how we can replace those items as fast as possible. So this increase, but as well to the mayor's point, Book for Life, that's essential in really making sure that we keep our collections as high of quality as possible to make sure that people are finding the items that they need here. And yes, you can place holds on items and have them brought here from other libraries, which is such a fantastic service for everyone. But I can guarantee people really like browsing. I don't frankly blame them, but that hit home for me when we were closed during COVID, and people could place holds and come pick up, and I was receiving calls daily that they really wanted the library to be open again so they could browse our shelves. They didn't want my recommendations. I didn't take it personally. They didn't want to place items on hold. They just really wanted to browse. They want that experience. The better that we can have a very good collection that people can browse, the higher our circulation numbers will be. And that is the, oh, and then, sorry, the last is book lease program. That's essentially Overdrive, or the Libby app, if you're aware of using that. That's our ebooks and e-audiobooks, including our Overdrive Advantage collection. The directors voted to increase that just due to the demand of ebooks and e-audiobooks, which keeps going up and up and up. So we're trying to meet the demands of our community, so that's why there's that increase.
Which one is that, right?
That is 818, the book lease program.
That's okay, thank you. Yeah. Doug?
Yeah, along the lines of, you know, having materials so you can get increased circulation, I see that the children's book line, the young adult books line, and the large print books line aren't going up.
Yeah, so that's where the Book for Life kind of comes into play, where it's complementary, where I'm splitting up the Book for Life funds to all the collections, so I wouldn't be essentially putting those dollars to adults. Since there's an increase there, it would then be shuffled over to youth services and potentially large print as well.
So that 9,000 gets spread across all.
It gets focused on those that's not getting the increase in operating dollars. Essentially, they're all getting an increase in some way, shape, or form with just that one.
Right, but
line
it's
item
being
going up.
spread across all those.
Correct.
Print mediums.
Correct.
And that, does that, you said it fluctuates, that amount, or is it pretty steady at 9,000?
It fluctuates, but knocking on wood, it doesn't seem to be doing much luck, but it's been going up. So it earns, it's with the Madison Community Foundation, I assume like invested, we get our disbursement. It's been upward trending. So previously it was like, I want to say $8,100. Previous year before that was like $7,800. So it's not one solid amount every year, but it's been trending upwards.
And I think it's averaged over the investment gains over a couple years,
That's correct.
too, so I would assume it's going to continue going up for a while.
I hope so.
It doesn't look like those lines have changed, at least since 2021.
So
Maybe they
money
changed.
comes into a donation account?
No,
It's
I
not-
don't mean that. I mean the budget lines for the adult books or for children's, young adult, and large print. Well, large print is, anyway, they haven't changed much in at least 5 years.
Yeah.
So even, yeah, I mean, it's great, but I don't think the Book for Life program was ever intended to say, well, we're going to not, I think the idea was more to supplement,
Yeah.
not to replace.
Yep.
And if the base amount hasn't changed in those 5 years, you know, despite, as we all know, quite a bit of inflation, like those numbers are buying fewer books than they did in 2021.
Where I could look to do is shift from either AV or possibly, well, AV. The other line item that I've been looking at is, what is in here? Periodicals, pamphlets. The magazine subscriptions are getting fewer and fewer in terms of what's even available to subscribe to, as well as our database dollars. So there is possible that we could have some savings from those two line items and take those funds over to either youth services or large print to increase it even more.
Because one thing, so his original request he had to do for non-personnel was 10%. So I think when you guys did it, you guys had to true a couple things up, correct? So that's why it didn't go into the books, like water and sewer went up 3,500. You did do some maintenance too before that, so some of that was eaten up going to those things instead of going to the books. I mean, I think that's what happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, so, Alderwood, to your point that it's not meant to replace, I completely understand. What Mark's pointing out, and I guess which I need to do better at articulating, is while circulation is a high priority, the maintenance has been really kind of hanging over our heads. So when I had the 10%, that was something I knew that had to go up.
No.
As well as the water. So knowing that Book for Life is there has been invaluable to make sure that at least the collections are also receiving those dollars from some source,
Right.
if not the operating budget.
Yeah, I'm not questioning how you put together the budget, but I mean, there is a possibility of amendments.
Sure. And if there would be, I'd be happy to talk with anyone at further length and look at more data in terms of what collections potentially would very much benefit from getting an increase. Specifically, it would probably be services, and even more specifically, it'd be the early reader collection and frankly, the graphic novel collection, which has increased in popularity dramatically in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Do you have much demand for books in other languages?
We do, specifically with our Spanish
Mhm.
language collection. We have been trying to look over the last couple of years of refreshing our adult Spanish language collection, trying to get out into the community and get some feedback there, because we did have an adult Spanish collection, but it was very outdated.
Mhm.
And just it wasn't certain, I assume because of how outdated it was. We've received a lot of comments, positive comments about our children's Spanish language
Yeah.
collection, and get quite a few families in Monona coming specifically for that, and browsing that collection.
Well, it's good. It's a good way to learn Spanish.
Yeah. And we do have some world language packs, I want to say like 7 of them. Those could do for a refresher as well. I believe they're 5 years old at this point.
And then one more thing, could you just speak a bit about the Book for Life program? I just did a quick internet search, and I just don't think I found what seems to be a good match on what you were referring to.
I'll do my best. I know there's some people in this room that could probably speak to it better than I could, but it was started in the mid-2000s by Director Demita Gerbers at that time, and it was meant to, I want to say, up the collection. Was it due to the Dane County?
It was
with
Madison
increasing
Community Foundation.
Yeah, with the Madison Community Foundation, but I think that wasn't there a need because of the space of the library increasing, so the Dane County standards would then be
Might have
for a
been
larger
part of it, but
collection?
we weren't the only library that
Oh,
got that funding. I
got
don't
it.
think we got, I think it was $1 for every $2 we raised, up to 100,000. So we raised 100,000 and got 50,000
Wow.
from Madison Community Foundation. And then, of course, that money continues to
It continues to
increase in
build.
value.
So
We
it's
have
a-
actually 2 funds in the Community Foundation,
Okay.
in the Library Foundation, and that's one of them.
Well,
And you have
it's
3
now
now?
3. They split
Okay.
one. I can't remember due to a technicality, but mentally it's still 2. There's the Book for Life and then what I call the general. For the Book for Life, though, we still honor then the donors and the families and those items, and they get to pick like what genre of items they would like. We put a book plate in their memory, and then whatever's remaining we have used to supplement the collection.
So
The
it's kind
deal
of-
was anybody who gave $500 had a book bought in their name
Yeah. Oh.
for the rest of their life.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of, I mean, neighborhoods did it. I know my book club did, several others did. We had a lot of $500 donations.
It was a fantastic program, and it has proven
Yeah.
just immensely valuable for the community, for us to be able to get those items.
Can you still do it?
People have submitted, when the foundation asks for funds, we have received checks that put in their Book for Life, and we'll put those funds into that account.
But in a lot of cases, you'd prefer it goes into the general fund, right? Because you have more flexibility there.
Yeah.
And you could use it for books, too.
That's
But-
correct. Which we may use some of that funding actually to refresh. We have some memory cafe kits that we purchased 4 of those, I want to say 5 years ago. We're refreshing those as well. With Aaron, our adult services librarian, has been working with the senior center on getting those. So we hope to get those in early 2025 using some of those foundation dollars.
So the library still is receiving funds through this Book for Life program, even
There's an annual
to today?
disbursement.
There's
correct.
an annual, lovely.
Because it's set up as an endowment.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And you get additional dollars from the general foundation
correct.
funds as well.
That is correct.
right?
It's not as high as the ones for Book for Life,
Yeah.
but it's just still very, very handy.
Did you have anything else to explain about your budget? Because I think we kind of got stuck on the books. And before we go to questions,
I went through all the changes.
Okay.
Everything else that I did not mention, there's no change.
and of course, salaries are up quite a bit.
That is correct.
Yeah. Nancy, did you have something?
Yeah,
or-
so, I wish I had thought of this a couple of, before Doug and Leah presented tonight, but I know one of the questions that I received from a fair number of residents before the referendum was, or even comments since the referendum was, I hope you'll take a look at some of the cuts that the staff would have made had the referendum not passed. And I don't want to go through those budgets. I'm not interested in going through those budgets, but I'm curious, I guess, in a broader brush sense. I know that the staff spent a lot of time doing budgets, thinking, where would I cut if the referendum didn't pass? And I'm just curious, if you had to cut, or if you had to trim back, where were you looking at? Obviously beyond compensation. Is that a fair question?
Are you speaking to the hypothetical scenario that the referendum didn't pass
Yeah.
when I was looking at cutting?
Yeah, exactly.
Hypothetically, I was looking at eliminating all periodicals, so no magazines, no newspapers to the library. I was
Okay.
also looking at cutting all databases, so the Ancestry database that we have, the Consumer Reports database that we have, the Canopy database or Canopy dashboard that we have. That would be cut. I was also looking at cutting our collections, even though that you can't do it, that's also something to be up for cutting. But that would be very counterproductive, as I explained, where circulation is actually very important for our Dane County funding. But I can't cut maintenance
Right.
because we need to keep the building open.
Sure, absolutely.
And the one to cut was on there, we're looking at, we were looking at a day.
Yes.
I mean, that wasn't,
Aldermore mentioned non-personnel.
oh, non-personnel, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
But that would've been-
beyond personnel, yeah. Because I think we all know our personnel have their backs up against the wall and we're not going to cut anybody. But beyond personnel, I was just from a programmatic standpoint.
I believe there was also a cut in, like, programming. Basically, all services would have been reduced or eliminated.
Right, right. Okay.
Non-personnel is where you haven't seen increases the last several years.
That's
None of the
correct.
departments, so
That's correct.
not a whole lot left to cut.
Can I just make a quick comment on that?
Yep, Neil?
And I think, Aldermore, I think I did mention in one point when we were talking about some of the referendum scenarios that probably one of the more challenging, and I'll even say personally frustrating, I think parts of the referendum budgeting exercise is that a lot of the areas that we were looking at for cuts are areas that we're trying to grow and expand now that the referendum's passed.
Sure.
So it was, actually that list was almost the same in many cases. There's the overlap on both of them. So it certainly was, I think, a very difficult exercise for staff, knowing that if they were giving their honest recommendation, they think these programs should grow or be invested in. And those were the same ones that we also looked at probably having to tighten the belt on in a lot of cases for a lot of departments as well. So.
Sure. And as I said to many people in speaking to them, I'm definitely aware that we have had our operating budgets, and not just salaries and compensation, but our program and services budgets as well, already cut to the bone, for a lot of years. And so it's not like, we've had fluff in any of those budgets. If you will, but it's helpful to know, and I appreciate that.
And I would even, just to build on Ryan's comments, is look at the actual dollar figures that he was looking to have to, we're, $500,000.
Yeah.
These are not major categories of funding. We're really looking at very small line items to try to achieve some savings in each department. But, Ryan's budget was no different on that.
Right. Thank you.
I have a staff-related question. How many staff, when I look at the permanent, the line about permanent salaries and then part-time wages, can you tell me how many employees that
Approximately
covers?
21.
21 permanent?
No, 21 staff.
21 total.
So if you're looking at permanent,
Yeah. Permanent library.
counting
union salary.
myself, I want to say 8, 7 or 8.
Okay. And then 2
Yeah.
part-times.
So that's, I included them in that. The 2 permanent part-times is included in the number I provided.
So 8 full-time and
No,
part-time
well-
staff, and then the 21 are seasonal, or what?
No, it's, well, the remaining 13 are hourly.
Hourly.
So my department is one of the few that has this hourly status that is not permanent part-time, but it's not seasonal.
Right.
They don't get benefits and that
I'm,
kind of.
I'm still not getting it. So permanent library union salaries, that figure accounts for how many people?
You do permanent full-time, right? How about that?
8.
8 people, okay.
Eight FTE or 8 people?
Yeah.
I think that's what
Yeah.
gets confusing as
Yes,
well.
I agree.
Which,
Give it to
was so
people-
which is the question?
There's a line for permanent library union salaries.
It's 8 total people as far as FTEs, it's probably 6.5.
Somewhere around there. I think in the annual report, I have it at like 11.87 FTE total, including the hourly. So that's the total staff. If you're talking about the permanent, it's approximately like 6.5 FTE.
So the line that says wages, that's your hourly.
No. Oh, I'm sorry, wages, yes,
Maybe-
yes. Salaries,
110
salaries is not,
110
wages is the hourly.
110 is your full-time, permanent part-time.
Yeah.
119 is pages and assistant.
Library systems.
Yeah.
And you can drop the union from
Yeah,
permanent
I
library
just
union
noticed it's been out a
salaries.
few years.
We haven't had a union in quite a while.
Okay.
Since
That's-
Act 10.
That's good.
I just noticed
So,
that too.
so 6.5 permanent, permanent salaried
FTE.
employees,
FTE.
full-time employees, and 2 part-time or hourly employees? No,
No.
no.
Okay, so I'll back up. In terms of total number of people.
Well, if you could just give me the numbers for each of those lines.
I don't know which number you're
Oh.
requesting, though. I don't know if it's the actual number of people or if the FTE.
Right, I think just, if we just go, like, say, just regular full-time staff, and then how many part-time staff, I think is probably what you're
Well,
looking
wait.
for. I mean, without permanent status, just,
So without,
yeah, just.
He has some part-time permanent.
Yeah, so that's where
Right,
it's
well, I
all-
understand that.
So there's
I'm saying
10 people-
Permanent is what's confusing people, I think.
There's 10 people in the 110 account. You look at the 110.
So 10 people on 110. Oh,
But-
okay.
But we don't have, I don't have the equivalent, but it's 10 people's salaries. One person's 0.7, one person's 0.5. I
Okay.
would have to figure that, add it all up. And then the 119 account is roughly, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
a quick count in my head, maybe I was off.
What'd you say?
I said, I thought it was 21
13.
total.
13, okay, that divide that, which, okay, thank you.
But a lot of them only work 11 hours a
Yeah.
week or less, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyone else? Brian?
Mark, did I hear you correct that the county aid for libraries will decrease by $20,000?
Yeah.
But right now, we have a balanced revenue expenditure. So
Yeah, I have something that's gonna make it up.
something in here that you can tell us about?
No, it's the transfer from, it's the overall transfer from tourism. So tourism is gonna be, I should have adjusted it, but it's gonna be about 20,000 more than what I have initially in there.
So there'll be a new revenue in here for $20,000?
No, it'll balance each other out. It'll be a new revenue in the general fund and a reduced number in the library. So it nets to 0. That's in 2 different accounts.
But in essence, there's 20,000 less coming in for
Yes.
aid to the
Yes.
library, but it's being absorbed by general,
Yes.
Mm-hmm. which is, I think, important for us to know. And then I see there's no expenditure for vending machine, but there's revenue coming in.
Yeah, that was another,
It should be.
that was another
should be in-
oversight. The 3,000 should be eliminated for revenue,
Should
but
be
that
in room.
3,000 should be applied in room rentals,
Yeah.
which would be 8.
Oh, so
But-
instead of 5 and 3, there should be one line for
Should be-
8.
Correct.
Under
The,
room
the
rental.
total does not change. Just the 3 is zeroed out.
Got
The
it.
5 is 8.
Got it.
No, they got rid of it, but is it realistic to believe that the room revenue is gonna go up when,
We will be changing, the board will be, it's not official approval, but we are looking at changing it with our room rates. Most likely will be going up again. They did go up early this year. They will be going up again, as well as we have been offering a discount for nonprofits that will be going away.
Yeah,
So
this year we're
that
trying.
difference with and the room usage continues to go up. I am very confident we will get at least 8.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be closer to 10 in reality at the end, because this year's gonna, at 8, and it's actually, when the last time I looked, it's closer to about 9,000, projected. So it's gonna easily get that number.
okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, I think you're good, thank you. And next up is Jake. Yay. The high point of the evening.
Recognizing some
Is that the clerk?
Oh, it's actually, Lee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Jake. You're right. I was so excited about you being the next up that, yeah.
So clerk's office is on page 35. Besides salaries, pretty much everything below professional development is increasing a little bit. Professional development, I would like to start sending the deputy clerks to some actual formal training. We lucked out this year, conference was here, and with 4 elections, it was just too busy to do a lot of training. Office supplies, postage, publications is the State Journal and the Herald, and public notices. All of those have seen the increases over the last year, so this is bringing us up to meet those needs.
In the clerk too, one of the, I don't know, you notice a new line item, clerk overtime. So that was one of the accounts where like elections, or 2 deputy clerks, they'd work more than 40, but then and this happened often, so they would, take time off instead of getting paid, so we're trying to get that corrected. With all the elections every 2 years and then a lot of other stuff they do now, that was the reason why there was 5,000 put in there for that reason.
Any questions for Lean? Okay, and then would you have elections?
Yep,
you were gonna
elections
talk
is
about?
page 38. So with the elections fluctuating, some years we have 2, some years we have 4. We try to maintain these counts between the years. So like this year, I'm quite a bit over budget. Next year, I should be under. There's, looks like a $16 increase on the service contracts. That is to maintain the DS200s, which is the tabulators, and the Express Vote, which is the accessible voting machines. We have annual maintenance and just costs associated with that. Public notices did go up. Just the paper charges us more than they have in the past. And election supplies, that purchases everything to run the election. Ballots, printing the ballots, we've seen a huge increase in those fees. This year alone, it was like $3,600 we paid just for the February and April ballots. I also had to buy a couple more ballot booths to maintain compliance with the state statute. We're required to have a certain amount per voters in the last general election. So that's a little bit extra. Envelopes, all of that is costing more.
Brian?
I have an unusual question that came up with the increase of in-person early absentee voting. Will there ever be a tipping point where we would have 1 polling site versus 2? And would that be a cost savings?
We still have to process all the absentee ballots on election day.
Yeah.
We were there until
10:15.
Yeah, about
at St.
after
Stephen's.
10, just feeding absentee ballots in.
The question came up of, well, couldn't they do that at 1 polling site
I don't think we have a room big enough, do we?
and have,
We would have to look at
I
traffic
don't know
counts,
the logistics of
parking.
it, just in theory.
Yeah, as of right now, I wouldn't be considering it. There's
Perfect.
too many people on election day at the polling place. So every 2 years, general election, that's going to be your highest turnout. We had 96% of our registered voters for this election. So, yes, we had a ton of absentee in person and by mail, but we still had a lot of people in person. And there was still lines out the door at points. Quickly to get through them, but still huge lines. So,
Was it a little more than half who were absentee? So, yeah. But of course, then that requires more staff to process those, because that takes a lot more Mickey Mouse than just giving somebody a ballot and they vote it. You have to do all this other stuff too.
Do we pay to rent St. Stephen's?
we do not currently.
I do know Joan looked into it one time before she left. I don't remember what the reasons were. Why she didn't want to move it. But I know she did look into it at one time.
Yeah, I mean, parking is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Just room capacity, the Badger books, how we have 12 of them total, 6 at each polling site. We wouldn't, with the amount of voters we have, having one location it wouldn't really work. The server is not built to handle that capacity. That would be an issue.
Would it be, I don't think it would be much additional, less cost, right? Because you'd have the same amount of employees.
There's no room charge for
There's
St.
no
Stephen's.
Yeah.
It's the-
And
yeah.
same number of people that
Yeah.
needed to process
Right.
everything, and, yeah, so.
Anyone else? Thank you, Elaine. Now, Jake, it's your time. Parks is page 92.
Say again? Did you say 92?
92.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Jake Anderson, Park and Rec Director. 17th Committee of the Whole
Wow.
budget hearing for me, 17th.
You broke in.
Your 17th year doing this?
Yes.
Is that what you just said?
Finishing year 17, yes, in Manila, for my 17th budget. Our department has 9 full-time people in Park and Recreation. We start with the Parks budget. We have 2 full-time employees that are allocated to this budget. We have 4 different budgets that I'm responsible for, and we have percentages of each employee in different budgets. So over the years, we've went from 100% of our full-time Parks employees in the Parks budget to shifting it to the pool and the recreation budget to account for the work that they do in those areas as well. Park salaries also includes a portion of my salary, and it includes the time that our public work employees assist in the parks. And so that's actuals and projected based on where the need is. And so one of the neat things that we have is that our 2 full-timers do work hand in hand with public works employees and report to the public works garage, and we share equipment and staff as needed, and that's a wonderful working relationship that we have. Part-time wages are indicated in this year's budget have a slight increase. Probably won't amount to additional people, but what we have to pay in order to get people to work at various times of the year continues to go up from year to year. We compete with Dane County and City of Madison for employees, parks, and specific laborers. And so we try to be competitive. We have a variety of LTEs, as we call them, limited term employment. Some are 9 to 10 month employees that start in April and go through the end of October. Some are college students or high school students that are here from mid-May to mid-August. And then we also have weekend staff, and we've kind of gone back and forth on hiring staff just for the weekends or part of our weekday staff, and that may be a combination of shifting of hours or paying overtime, which is the next line item that you see. So overtime budget is predominantly for full-time staff, and that's for coming in for snow removal in the wintertime, ice rink challenges that we might have, pool. So we do rotate through our 2 full-times, myself and Missy, for summertime on call or coming in to take care of checking the pool. The rest of it is just benefits, professional development in the parks. Over the years, we've been able to get different certifications for forestry, for aquatic facility operations, for CDL. So those continuing education opportunities for myself and for our staff. We look at different areas that we can improve what we do, become more efficient.
Just so you know, he says like aquatics, we do allocate to those other departments. He's just saying, in general, it's not just going to parks.
Correct, yeah. For full-times, for the 2 full-times.
Yeah, I mean, we allocate more this time.
Correct. Utilities, some of these utilities fluctuate with usage at our various facilities. For example, one of the things is that we'll be working on in 2025 is being able to reprogram our lights at Huska Park, for example, for the tennis courts. And right now, when they get turned on at a certain time, they're on a photocell, which means they can't get turned on until it's dark, but then they stay on until 10 o'clock. We have the same issues at the skate park, but we have different style of lights at the skate park, so we can't quite do that yet. And so that'll be an area that we'll be working on to increase efficiencies, reduce overall cost. Part of our budget over the years has included a portion at Grand Crossing, so a portion of the utilities for the ice rink come out of this budget, and a portion gets allocated to the rec budget. Otherwise, all the facilities that we operate, besides the pool, utilities go into this budget. Stormwater utility continues to see some increases. We're also working with Brad on potential credits that we may be able to get. Parks soak up a lot of stormwater, and so we want to be able to apply for credits, especially in areas that have paved surfaces, but drain right into grass and not into a gutter system. Outside services, so that's probably one of the bigger changes that we have in the referendum budget. This increase will allow us to be able to contract out some things that we haven't been able to get to ourselves. That includes repair and maintenance of the rain gardens at Lottis Park at the boat launch, and so those have some regulatory issues that they get inspected and have to be maintained. This also includes being able to contract out some landscaping services, especially at Grand Crossing Park, to be able to kind of keep up with the appearance of the private development. It will allow us to continue our cooperation and agreements with Madison-Dane County Public Health in order to monitor and test our beaches and participate in a mosquito West Nile virus program in which they come out and dip different sites and check on that. We have contracted and worked with the Monona Grove School District as a school to work program in which students are able to get real life experience working in different aspects of parks.
And Jake, just to confirm, I'd ask Mark to increase that money in part so that somebody can come in and take care of the park signs like midway through the summer that are.
Well, the vast majority of our park signs are taken care of by volunteers. So
But
there are
they-
several that.
There were several that were overgrown all summer.
Sure.
And so I'm thinking some extra money for that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that.
Too, so.
It's just not in the script.
Just want to make sure that's clear.
Patrick has.
Patrick?
Yep, just in the budget, the San Damiano expense for parks, I just wanted to just confirm that the amount that we have in the expenses there for 23, 24, and 25, those are the expenses that are being reimbursed by Friends, right? Or no?
Right.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Jake is still accounting for them as an
Yeah,
expenditure.
gotcha, I just want to make sure in case,
Yeah,
you know,
make sure.
someone
Yeah.
looks at
Until
that
such
and
time
thinks
that we might have
yeah.
an MOU, and then we would necessarily have that.
We'd have some probably, but.
It probably, it would still probably show up on both sides of the
Right.
ledger.
Okay.
Yep.
Because this year,
Right, if, I think we're anticipating that it's gonna be somewhere in the order of 40,000 or something, right? When all is said and done with San Damiano? That we would,
Not
that
that
you would be
much.
billing Friends?
No.
No? Okay.
I think, don't we also have some costs for, and we also charge the Friends for some things involved in repairs at the house? Or do we
Yeah.
charge them for the electric, for instance? We
charge
should
them,
be,
yeah.
that
We
kind
do
of
it-
thing?
At the end of the year, we do a final billing.
So it isn't
Okay.
just the mowing and that kind of thing?
Right,
Yeah,
that's
correct.
where, that's where I
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
have, that's where I may have come up with that larger
Yeah.
figure, because I know that the Friends has certainly done more
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
15.
Works
so-
out, Jen.
Park supplies, that includes just a general accounting for all of the trash bags and toilet paper and paper towels and hand soap that we use in our shelters. PPE for our staff, that includes t-shirts, hats, etc. That number has increased just on overall costs and usage in our parks. But we've been able to kind of monitor and look at different areas of where we're purchasing product to achieve some savings there. The two probably biggest line items and increases in areas that we have the biggest need and that we continually go over budget is in our equipment maintenance and repair and our facility maintenance and repair. So equipment maintenance repairs for our vehicles, for our toolcat, repairs to all of those are very expensive, the mowers, and then we also have some cost share for leased equipment with Public Works, and so that's where that line item comes from. And then the facilities maintenance and repair for all of our park shelters and our restrooms, and so typical service calls for plumbing range from $400 to $800, for 4 to 6 hours for repairs. These are living, breathing facilities, and we involve people. And so we have vandalism. We have some of our shelters that are aging now, like Ahuska and Dream Park continually have challenges. These are shelters that we winterize, and so the reason why they're not open now is that we drain the water lines. We try to blow out everything, use RV antifreeze to fill everything, and then in the spring we hope that everything is working, but those are the challenges that we have. And so with the referendum passing, we were able to right-size these budget line items and not be over budget. Fuel, pretty explanatory. Portable restrooms, those are for multiple facilities that we have, and some are year-round, some are seasonal, depending on usage. That would have been a budget casualty, Aldermore, if you were wondering or going to ask that question. In a failed referendum, we would not have been providing any portable toilets in our park system.
Description is Sam Dom, but we can scratch that because that's actually gets coded to.
That's correct. Yep, that one gets actually coded to Sandom.
Yeah.
Which one does?
This one here. Portable restaurant, description
yeah.
says that.
Yeah.
You actually-
Yeah.
you can
Got it.
scratch.
New in the referendum budget is adding money in for a management plan at Woodland Park. And so if you recall from our capital budget, it was an ineligible item. And so this is where we can now make sure that we continue the work of John Traver and keep that ecosystem where it needs to be with contracted management of the park. And then a historic capital item has been shifted over into operating, the replacement of benches, trash cans, and bike racks. It's kind of a general item we've used in the capital. Some things that we've done, maybe you recall from the capital, is we've been starting to invest in recycled plastic picnic tables at Fireman's Park, and that will extend the life and you'd think replacing boards on a picnic table won't be that difficult, but it can be very challenging with the type of bolts, and sometimes they take,
The
2
rust,
hours, and then you gotta paint them, and et cetera. So that's now in the operating versus being in the capital. So we'll be able to
Nice.
utilize that fund on an annual basis.
Doug?
Two things. First, I'm really glad to see the Woodland Park money in operating, because
Yeah.
if we didn't do that, it wouldn't take long at all for it to start unrestoring itself. And so I think that's great to see. And then on the bike racks, et cetera, we did include, there's 15,000 in the capital budget.
Yeah.
That we adopted, or I assume we're not going to do.
We're not going to
both,
put that
right?
in there. There should be another slash for playground stuff, surfacing. But yeah, so that's where the 25 number came from, so.
Right, but
We'll take it out of capital.
Okay.
And then put,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we're not going to borrow for it.
Okay. We don't need to do anything to.
No.
We'll just.
Well, when we do the borrowing, we'll just, put it in
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
As Jake wants it.
Don't say that.
Maybe we can
Sure there's some other use.
find a way to do our pool concession expansion project.
There you go.
Any other questions for Jake about the park budget? Nancy?
Actually, I wanted to, for my own record, so you were talking about the certifications, aquatics, forestry, and what was the third one?
CDL, so for the ability to drive our larger scale vehicles, so like our dump trucks. One of our full-time employees has it, the other is going to be working for it.
It's also handy support for Public Works as well, to have an extra CDL online if needed,
Right.
so. I would just, if I want to do a quick comment on that one too, that is a rare partnership, I think, in a number of communities that I've worked for, the fact that our two staffs work together as effectively as they do. When needed, obviously they both have their own workloads that need to be taken care of, but it is I think one of the issues that did seem to come up during the referendum discussion was, well, what are you guys really doing to save money and be efficient? And,
Right.
well, this is a great example. This is not a new initiative. This is something that both Director Anderson and Director Stefani have been doing for quite some time as a standard operating measure, that they share that staff and work together as needed. So just want to highlight that out a little bit as one of several examples as we go through this process that shows that we're not randomly creating jobs. We're not going out and adding random hours and things. We're being extremely efficient, I think, with our staff.
And I don't think we should take that for granted. I don't know that in other communities it always would work that way,
No.
between department heads and being willing to share their workforce.
It's often very competitive, actually, in terms of competing for resources and those. So
And you share some equipment too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, the other thing that came up, and I ended up responding to, I know, on social media was, our department heads, our departments do a ton of work in-house that other places would contract out. And, like I ended up talking on social media about all of the benches and the countertop and the ceiling and furniture and everything over, at the below deck. And the fact that you do so much forestry and the PW does so much forestry and, right down to the, nifty table, picnic table mover that Public Works made, or the water dispenser that Public Works made, a few years ago when we did the all-city swim meet. That kind of stuff, most communities would just contract it out. They wouldn't be using their own trees or their own staff. And it made me realize, actually, in that regard, I think it would be kind of cool as a longer-term project if we could do some video or something to showcase, with each, little, as my mother would say, instead of show and tell, bring and brag, a little video with various departments going around and talking about the things that they actually do that aren't, really part of their job description, nobody told the Parks Department they have to build all their own picnic tables or build their own benches or their own ceiling, that's the level of pride and passion that they have. So, anyway.
Anything else about parks? Should we move on to the recreation?
Yes.
Page 123.
So what's unique about this budget, the outdoor pool budget, compared to what you'll see from other departments, is we balance out some revenue with our expenditures, and then the difference is the tax levy. I'm probably most proud overall of what our staff has been able to accomplish over the last 10 years in increasing the amount of revenue that we collect from recreation services. So a lot happens in this budget. I think the overall line is you look at what that tax levy is, and at $121,000, it's a pretty good bang for your buck on what we're able to provide for this community. That increase from previous years is due to the salary increases for our very hardworking staff. We have multiple revenue line items that I'll just quickly go over. In the first reading, you'll have some more detailed breakouts of some individual programs that we have. But the rec program fees is for a lot of our youth recreation programs that may not fit into one of the other buckets that we have. Our adult recreation fees include our wellness programs, tennis, adult tennis, and really a lot of our pickleball classes and programs and events have driven up those revenues, and kudos to Jessica Walsh, who's really spearheaded our adult recreation programs. Our youth sports fees, that is kind of our core sports, like football, soccer, basketball, volleyball. And then we get to the big one, the after-school program fees. This is pretty solid projections on revenues based on existing enrollment in the program, and so because we follow the school year, we already know what our spring or winter 2025 revenue is going to look like, and then we take registration for the fall in February and March. And so with the transition to Maywood, we're over 110 individual kids in the program between our 4K RAP and our after-school program. And so that went from a max of 50. And so we've effectively been able to eliminate wait list. And what we've seen, and I'm sure you've seen it too, is anyone that's moving into this community with children are dual working parents. And for a big portion, or for a portion of their lives, we are one of the most important things in our family's worlds, is that we have consistent, dedicated childcare. And it's easy to kind of forget about that time period in our lives, in that kind of 4 to 9 to 10, of just like how insanely valuable it is to be able to have our children be able to stay locally and not have to go drive somewhere outside of town, and to have access to the green space that we have, the pool. And so
With full support of the school district too, right, Jake?
that is correct, yep. And so being able to now utilize this building has been really incredible. And Jessica Beglin and our Missy Miller, architects kind of this current version of the program, being able to work with not only the school district, but just a host of families. It's our biggest program that we have, our largest revenue generator that we have. And it's no easy feat to be able to continue to have staff that works a variety of hours. But the revenue's big. We're market rate, no doubt about it. This is not subsidized by tax dollars. It's expensive. And we try to pay our staff that works in an LTE an appropriate wage, and a higher wage, quite frankly, than what we have in some of our other programs. And so our department in the peak has over 125 employees, with basically 3 main supervisors. And so just want to repeat that. Over 125 employees with 3 main supervisors during our peak times, and a lot of them in our recreation. I'm spending time on this because it was brought up a lot over the last month and mischaracterized in flyers and online about what we do and how it's done.
think starting with people saying that we were just thinking about starting this now. And this has been going on since 2018.
Yeah.
That is correct, Mayor.
So.
One of the
And that's
also
a
things that I.
daycare, not
Wait,
an
wait,
after-school
And it's
program.
not a daycare.
Yeah, I want to clarify, that, you know, clearly it's not a daycare. Clearly and absolutely, we have been doing this since 2018. So any discussion or commentary from people that used to serve on this body that it wasn't is just weird. Anyway.
And I would say that the discussion was over a course of several years with the school district in negotiations and discussion and having equity in which there's Cottage Grove side had a 4K wrap. We did not have the space at Winnequa. It was ongoing for a long time. And the arrangement or the agreement also provides that we are responsible for the grounds portion. So we will do the snow removal from the parking lot. We mow the district property. And so the fee that was negotiated was a good deal, I think, for both parties. And so we were able to keep our fees at a level that we were comfortable in and what we anticipated to be the need. And we also provide a service to the district that they don't have to allocate their own resources to. And so I think that was a fair amount, and that's a 5-year deal that we'll be kind of reevaluating with the new district administration over the next couple of years on the future of what that looks like. But as far as what I'm seeing, as long as we're getting 80 kids a year coming into kindergarten, it's going to be a very successful program and continue to be so. So we could refer to it as out-of-school time programming. That is kind of like a national discussion about what we do with our kids, that it's not just daycare in a sense. And even daycare, I think, would be an insult to just say we're just watching the kids or babysitting kids. We're doing structured activity, working with different personalities and doing enrichment type of programming and learning. Same thing with summer camp. So summer camp morphed into a full day summer camp program, a 10-week program. And so we do have a little bit of gap in coverage for some of our families that we have. And between these two programs, that is a lot. Almost $900,000 a year in revenue. Some families with us are spending over $30,000 to $35,000 a year on their family. And these are, they're also the ones buying pool passes, and they're also the ones coming to our beer gardens, and they're also ones that are supporting us in, and then coincidentally, a lot of these families, as kids age out, they start to become employees for us. And so we hire Monona students, we hire Monona people to work in these programs. And so some of our kids that we had in 2018 are now counselors in training. So we have a program for those age groups as well, where they get experience and they get to be mentored and then they get to be employees. So we are a job provider in recreation. And I think it's an important thing to note that in this community, I think I'm over 1,200 employees over the last 17, 18 years that have worked in some capacity. It's a lot of people and a lot of lives that we've been able to touch because of the fees, because of the programs that this community has demanded that we offer. So those were the two large revenue items that we have. The mayor and I have worked very diligently on the numbers over the years and made sure that it's self-sufficient and continues to do so. A couple of the other things that are in the revenue line item, kayak canoe rental. So those are the racks that you see at various parks. Those are paid annually to be able to store their canoe and kayak. Those are one-time costs to the city to build them, and then after that, it's $20 in stickers a year. Still a pretty popular program. Mm-hmm. The park field rental is where we include our facility use agreements that use our athletic fields, tennis courts. The Christmas tree sales is in this line item as well. we will be looking at several of our organizations that aren't on a facility use agreement, using the services. You'll see those coming in first quarter of 2025. Special event revenues. So the events that we do, the beer gardens, the Spooktacular, the fall festival, that's where the revenue goes into, and then there's a corresponding expense item as well. Grand Crossing, so that is the Lake Ridge Bank River Rink and the Below Deck concession sales. So that's the gross revenue from those periods. So we kind of have two different seasons, so to speak. We have the ice rink season, and then we have the concession sales. We have a lease. We're a tenant of Galloway, and that lease agreement dictates that we have to have normal operating hours similar to other concessionaires. And so we make money on the ice rink season, and we break even or maybe even lose a little bit on the summer with the staffing that we have. And so we continue to look at how we can bring more people into the area at different times as an effort to drive revenue. But we're selling ice cream, and we can't sell other things per our agreement that we have. And so it can be challenging in the gross sales that even when the scoops of ice cream are $5, that's still a lot of ice cream that you have to sell for, you know, it's a different at the pool. A good day at the pool between admissions and concessions could be $3,000. You know, a great day at Below Deck would be $1,000 in the summertime.
What about adding a pull tab machine at Grand Crossing?
Of what? A pull tab?
A pull tab machine.
I would defer to the city clerk if that's legal for us to do. But I know my son sure like the pull tabs any place we go that has them.
I would like to point out, so Jake, three of those top programs is over $1 million.
It's amazing.
It is.
I was just
So-
curious if there was a simple answer to explain why these programs continue to just expand. I mean, is it just more kids are moving into Monona? You have more space? No wait lists? I mean, is there a simple way to, how do you give credit to these amazing numbers that keep going up and up and up?
Really good at what
Yeah, oh, yeah, right, yeah.
For a micro city,
Right.
we are able to
That's
put on
amazing.
a heck of a program of activities, and over the years, the staff that we have, the job that they do, the professional development trainings, the conferences that they go to, the networking that they do, we're consistently doing things ahead of the curve. Actually, the ice rink is ahead of the curve. Mayor and Doug Wood, it's championed and supported that with some hesitation, I would say, during that 2018, and Alder Moore was definitely on board. But it was a leap of faith, and I think that was because of the staffing that we had, and what we have been able to do at that facility has spurred other ice rinks in this state.
Oh, really?
You hear from all
there's-
kinds of them, don't you?
Correct, and now this becomes, the kind of the standard of what you would want to do if you want to be able to have winter recreation in Wisconsin, just the changing of the temperatures. So I say that sort of being sarcastic,
Right.
Alder Rademacher, but there's been a changing of just the geography and the dynamics of who's moving in this community.
Well, that's a
A lot of families.
Obviously, it's awesome staff. I mean, that's clear, but I was also just thinking, you've got more space, you've got more kids. When I think about, the special event revenues, I mean, that's just gone up over 10,000. I mean, because it's family, it's geared toward families, and there's just more families. And it's just wonderful.
Jake, the rink was actually net positive this year, by I think $4,000. So it's paying for itself at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, I mean, just the investment that we have in the equipment. One thing with like, it's three-phase electrical, and so how MG&E works is, you know, I have a meter charge of like $400 a month, whether we use any electricity or not. And so we have to account for that, you know, off-season, just base meter charge, you know, into the budget that we have. And so there's these kind of set expenditures that may not, you know, that we're just paying regardless in order for like a 100-day season. So what's really unique about what we do is our experience with the outdoor pool and the ice rink is they're both like basically 100-day seasons.
Yeah.
And so we have like 100 days of like programming and events and private rentals and kind of dailies and so there's a lot of symmetry between what we do at the pool and what we do at the ice rink. And so that knowledge and expertise that we've had at the pool really helped us in what we're doing at the ice rink.
So it's pretty, it's interesting that, you know, the comments during the referendum process about the city looking for alternative forms of revenue besides taxpayer dollars. I mean, this has been going on for how long? Since we've been bringing in revenue through Parks and Rec that aren't being subsidized by taxpayers, you know, since at least 2018 and before, right?
Correct. I mean, I think the start of the after-school program really kind of changed the dynamics of what the rec budget looked like. I think, you know, certainly that, and then the implementation of the ice rink and kind of having a season or two of kind of deciding where we can best, you know.
Yeah, so Parks and Rec is basically leading the charge on alternate sources of revenue. Yeah.
I would agree.
Thank you.
And of course, you have one of the biggest opportunities to charge revenues too.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's not like Public Works can charge for rides on the
Right.
snowplow. Yeah.
Not yet.
I don't know what Civic would think about that, but.
That is an excellent idea.
The expenditures, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. Our admin salaries, again, pretty significant increase, but we also have a larger percentage in this year's budget of our park employees into the rec budget for the work that they do with the rink. And so when we think about how much time and effort goes into getting the rink started and maintaining it, that has shifted the percentage along with some of our other staff. And then we do break out for each program, after school, summer camp, and Grand Crossing, the wages. So you can look at the part-time wages and then look at the expenditures for each of those program areas and match it up with the revenue to see where we're looking at. The rest of the benefits in the rec budget, same thing with the professional development, different associations that we're members of, including our state association, our National Park and Rec Association, professional development opportunities for our staff, and as our staff continues to grow with full-time staff, whether they're in the after-school and summer camp program as full-time employees, we want them to be able to get additional training and attend conferences, so that's where that number is at. Supplies for rec program, youth sports, adult sports, those are all kind of coincide with the revenue. Probably the largest fee expense that we have and that we're kind of challenged on is, it's called active network fee, and really it's our credit card processing fee that we pay. And credit card processing fees are ridiculous. When we first started using our software program, it would be about 5%, you know, somewhere between 3 and 5%. And it has morphed over the last 5 years to be this variable pricing depending on what card you have, and really with the fees and the maintenance fees, we're averaging closer to 8 to 10%. So as our revenues go up, and probably 80 to 90% of our revenues are using credit cards, those fees have gone up. So on the revenue side, we have now charged a surcharge, just like just about every business in America. You see where the little sign is using a credit card is going to cost you more. We have also implemented the ACH program for the after school and the summer camp, so parents can just have a direct payment from their bank account to our bank account. and so that will eventually help. We will be looking at who our credit card processor is and try to negotiate some better deals that we have. But those are probably the, at least for Mark and I, the more frustrating part of this budget is just seeing those numbers come in and kind of trying to decipher the monthly reports that we get on what the different fees are. And I mean, it used to be pretty simple, and I don't know, it's hard to.
It's like they make it difficult for some reason.
Yeah.
So Jake, is that why I noticed the year-end estimated for that is 95,000, but you've booked 50, or you've
Yeah, that's why.
estimated 50, is that because of the ACH program?
Yeah.
I've noticed that already, the ACH has cut down a ton
Okay.
since we went to it, so.
I mean, if you think
And that number's probably
900,000,
inflated at the time when I was
you
looking
know,
at
at
it.
8% of
Yeah.
a credit card fee, and even if we can cut, you know, the goal is that we'll be cutting that at least in half. And I don't have that yet, but I can get that on how many
We're working
families
on
have
it, so-
opted into that for this year. We just started it maybe at the beginning of September, I believe.
August.
Yeah, for the start of this year's after-school
But it has a
program.
big difference.
Mayor, just one more thing.
Yep.
That is something, obviously, we have other departments who are taking online, either online payments or credit card payments as well. They're dealing with the same issue in terms of, paying for different fees and things. So I'd love to say that there's this magical one universal software out there that would take care of it for all departments. That doesn't exist. So it's figuring out what the best options are, being the most efficient, trying to minimize the number that we use, but certainly in Jake's case, the softwares that he uses for registration are very targeted and very intentional for rec programming, and they work very well for what he's doing, but it does not necessarily translate over into other departments.
So you can't always use the same software.
Right, so there's other things going on that we need to kind of be aware of on that, but it is something we are looking into, not only, I mean, Jake is obviously for his, but we are also trying to identify opportunities in other departments as well to try to
So
make
it's
that
an
more efficient.
auto withdrawal.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
people?
we have auto withdrawal with credit card, but
Yeah.
now it's auto withdrawal from your checking account.
Yeah.
And so that reduces, there's still some fees associated with that, I
A
think,
little
but
bit.
it's minimal
Minimal.
compared to
Yeah.
a percentage.
So the rest of the city uses PSN. If you have your water bill goes through there. We kind of talked already by, well, not you, but me and Jessica tried. Problem is if their system is how they collect all the money, and that's the problem, getting some compatible, because I already talked to PSN. and They couldn't do the same thing that his current system has. It's funny, somebody that's compatible with his system.
Yeah.
And I think these companies know that, it's very limited, so they.
And they all are like, I mean, the park and rec software industry, like when we go to the national convention, there's like 15 different vendors. And they're all like, one's great at this, and then the other, and then they're terrible. You know, they all have this there's positives and negatives. There's not one perfect one. Like there's just things that, and this is our second software system we've used since 2008. So, and basically I would say our state has across the board, many different software systems that we utilize, and depends on what you do and how you need to use it. And it's all the same. Everyone's got we love this part of it, but we don't like this part of it, or the reporting is terrible, or the fees.
How come we don't use Square or something like Square for those fees and whatnot?
Well, a lot of it's tied to, account records and for, registration. And so we run reports on enrollments or for daily point of sale stuff, maybe.
What's kind of nice for that is when we do beer gardens and whatnot, there's handhelds.
Correct.
That are,
Correct. The handhelds would be nice. I mean, I think we're at a point at Schluter, for example, with some of our IT upgrades that we'll be able to start using our software with the credit card readers.
Okay.
I know we've talked about that.
I mean, we're looking,
I think some of it is just the back end of it and how we can report and account for it, but.
Compatibility is the problem with their software.
Right, but for cash you know, for having the ability to use card at an event or something like that, it might be useful to have.
We probably use our PSN one.
Any other questions about the rec budget? Move on to pool, or I guess community centers next, page 119.
I did have one question.
Okay, Rick.
The after-school programs, is there any tuition assistance for people who can't
No.
afford? Have you found that there's people who want to use the services but can't afford it?
There is, and we already have a program in Monona at Winnequa School that offers financial assistance. And so if you're SNAP eligible, you can get tuition assistance at the YMCA program that's currently at Winnequa School.
Oh, okay.
We don't have a foundation or a mechanism for generating revenue to what it would cost to subsidize. Generally, the people that would need assistance are talking about quite a significant subsidy. So for one child, for 10 months, it's over $4,000 in fees. And so even if you're looking at, you know, 3,000, like that's a lot of extra revenue that we have to account for in order to make sure that we're covering our cost. And so there is a program in Monona that is there for those students. And so they still have, you know, I think 30 to 40 kids at the Winnequa program.
All right.
And I think a lot of those kids are able to take advantage of that program that they have through the YMCA.
Thank you.
Nancy?
Yeah, this is going back a little bit, but I just wanted to go back to having just spent some time with John and Peggy. The $20,000 that we have set aside, is that to contract burn teams or how, or what? I mean, have you talked to John about how we're going to manage the Savannah?
Yeah, we've had multiple
I'm sure you have.
firms that have come out and reviewed the management plan and spoken with John and I, and so that's where that money, that's where that quote has come from.
Okay,
is
fantastic.
to continue doing the management plan.
Fantastic. I just, having been part of the volunteer burn team with him.
Right.
And I know that you've worked with him a lot, so thank you for doing that.
Do you still have a management plan for Frostwoods Park? We haven't had that in a while, have we?
Yeah, I mean, that might be something to incorporate into our outside services, is to start with that. John's been working on that as well, in the woods at Frostwoods, the mayor's alluding to.
Kind of right behind the baseball.
Correct,
diamond there.
yep. And that's still in a kind of a removal of the garlic mustard, and we've gotten kind of one half of it. I think John has gotten one half of it, or we were able to plant some more trees, but I would think we will probably have that as an add-on. To do some more of the spraying and the invasive removal, and then the management of that wooded area.
That's something to think about. Anyway, community center, 120 or 119.
I'll go really quick because this budget is basically for a building that was built in 1963 and houses the senior center, offices and programs predominantly, and our park and rec offices. And so right now with the change to Maywood, we have Missy, our assistant director, myself, and Jessica Walsh are the three that are primarily housed at the community center. The rest of our staff generally is working out of Maywood or out of the parks.
People still come there like to pay fees and sign up.
Correct, yep. And so having a little bit of a segregation of the Maywood School versus general public use coming in to discuss Park and Rec, I think is where we're still, focusing our efforts. At the next meeting, you'll hear about the award of bid for a cosmetic remodel, including stairwell at the community center that was in the capital budget from last year, carried over to this year. I can report that it was within the budget that was allocated, which is pretty good. So we're excited to see that project hopefully get approved by this body and move forward. Diane and her team does a wonderful job of providing services for the seniors in that building, and as we have kind of moved out in the summer and after school time, the seniors have been able to do more programming in the upper level. The building's old. and breaks down a lot. And so the expenditures for building maintenance and repair get right-sized in this year's budget. We do have service contracts for HVAC, elevator, for example. You know, we have elevator service contract that comes in and to upgrade to a different bell or something like that, like $1,900. And so like anything that happens with this building as it relates to the building itself is just expensive. And there's regulatory things that we have to do with the building as well. And so all the items that are in the expenditures are for some of our salaries, and then just kind of keeping the building open for public use. We do not bring in any rental revenue for this building. We have been waiting to see what happens with the budget process. And we have a small amount of nonprofit groups that can meet at the community center, but we don't have the bandwidth to be able to kind of maintain the building or have it open. So as we have more facilities with Maywood and starting to program that for other populations, which I didn't get to in the rec budget, my apologies, but we had our first pickleball class. Actually tonight there's pickleball going on right now, just finishing up at Maywood School. And so as we continue to do that, we would look at building supervisors that would go from site to site. So, but as far as like rental revenue, the building is not conducive, or it'd be prohibitive in what we would have to have for more contracted cleaning or security for like wedding receptions, et cetera, than what it's worth. But we do want to start to work with our Monona-based organizations, which would include our MG sport teams and extracurricular organizations that could use the main hall for their events. What we continue to do is have outside events like our annual holiday craft fairs coming up here in a couple weeks, Little Badger consignment sale, there's a toy sale that comes in, and then a regular sale that's here twice a year. So we're still putting the building to use. It's just different now. And we don't have the kids in there every day.
Any questions about the community center? Okay, well then we will move on to the pool, page 134.
I'm just going to read some numbers off right off the bat. This is 2024 budget numbers. Sun Prairie Pool, $214,000 in revenue, $387,000 in expenditures, a levy of $172,000. That levy does not include any full-time wages or benefits. City of Middleton Pool, $267,000 in revenue, $352,000 in expenditures, a levy of $85,000, but that does not include any full-time wages or benefits. City of Madison, Goodman Pool, expenditures of $386,000, does not include any full-time wages or benefits. Revenues, unknown, because I cannot find them on their website. Monona Pool, revenues, $318,000. Expenditures, $440,000. That does include full-time wages and benefits to the tune of $122,000. The levy, $122,000. So when we talk about the outdoor pool and the expenditures that we have and the comparable aquatic centers in Dane County that we have, we rank right up there with bringing in the most amount of revenue currently. The original pool was built in 1963. The latest iteration was built in 1993. So it's old by outdoor pool standards. This body and the mayor and previous mayors and administrations has been excellent at providing the funding to keep our pool mechanically operating. And so our pump system, our filtration system, our chemical feeders are all upgraded. They are all well-functioning. But it's an old pool. We can't offer the same things that some of the other aquatic centers do. But what we do have is a loyal following of people that use the pool daily. And so, again, when we talk about what makes a difference, Miss Ari, our Zumba instructor, she makes a difference. Ari brings in over 100 people almost every single day.
Amazing.
She is a rock star. The kids that we have in our Learn to Swim program end up going to Monona Swim and Dive, which is a rock star nonprofit organization. And those same kids that swim in our pool from age 4 to 16 become our lifeguards and our aquatic centers. So while other outdoor pools have struggles with attracting staff and training, oh, by the way, we also have a rock star of an assistant director and aquatic professional, Linda C. Miller, who has continually upgraded her professional development and training and certification, in which not only can she certify lifeguards, she can now certify the lifeguard instructors. So she can train and certify our seasonal staff, who can then certify regular first-time lifeguards.
Is she running shifts on ambulances now too?
Believe it or not, she also certifies our city staff in first aid and CPR training as well. And so we have
great
that
class.
services that we can offer. So the pool has, I don't believe in your packet you have the fee schedule for 2025 of what was proposed and recommended by Parks Board. Increases across the board, so just so we're all aware, in all of our activities, park programs, we have increased fees for 2025 regardless of the outcome of the referendum. Fees continue to go up to keep the budgets where they're at in line. There are certainly variables that go into revenue recovery at the outdoor pool, which is weather, and specifically weather at the beginning of the season. It makes a huge difference on whether we're going to hit our numbers or not. That goes into season pass sales for residents and non-residents, daily admissions, in which we have one fee for children and seniors regardless of residency, and then non-resident and resident. About 65% of our daily admissions are adult non-residents. Pool rentals include private and semi-private rental of the pool. That also includes the Monona Swim and Dive fee per swimmer. So for years, we have increased that fee, and that fee is a per swimmer regardless of residency fee that we charge the swim and dive team, and they have a set fee. Advertising and promotions. So we set revenue goals for each year, and some years we're up on one account, down on one account, sometimes weather or mechanical issues. I think one of the things that I pride ourselves on is that we have very few downtimes due to mechanical issues. And that's because myself and Missy, our AFO, which is a certification that requires ongoing training, our 2 park staff, we have eyes and ears on that pool and the mechanical room daily, including nights and weekends. And so we do that in an effort to make sure that we're open. The pool's open 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. We have staff there for 100 days. It's a long 100 days in the height of summertime. I know Alder DePula had asked in a scenario of what would it take to remove the tax levy. And so I spent some time, and if we had the same amount of people that would pay for season passes and daily admissions in order to kind of eliminate the tax levy for the outdoor pool, we would be going from, I gotta pull it up, my apologies, it'll take just a minute, but it's It was an interesting exercise. This year, we have daily admissions, $6 for adults, $7 for non-resident adults, $5 for children and seniors. In order to get to a reduced levy, that would go $7 adults, $12 non-resident adults, $6 kids and seniors. Season passes for a resident family this year is going to $200. It was $175 last year. $300, actually $400 for non-residents this year from $250. So there's a significant increase in fees for non-residents already. If we wanted to hit a levy reduction, we would be looking at a season pass price of $300 for Monona residents, $600 for non-residents. So there's some talk about whether we look at a Village of Shorewood Hills model, which is more of a membership-based. It's incredibly expensive. It would also take the Monona Senior Pass from $65 up to $75, but the non-resident Senior Pass, which we have a lot of because of, again, Miss Ari and the Zumba class, from $100. So that's already a significant increase from $70 for non-residents to $150. And so we can do it. The big kicker would be that instead of a single fee for Monona Swim and Dive, we would require that each family purchase a season pass. And so you may have received an email from the board president supporting the pool and stating that 41% of the club is residents. That means 60% roughly is non-resident. And doing the math and equating it out, we don't have that many non-resident family pool passes. So that would be a scenario. We can do it potentially, given that we would still hopefully see the same demand, but that's a big if on raising those fees that significantly to get to a point where we would not have levy assistance for the operation of the outdoor pool. And it's quite frankly shifting towards a membership module, which we did consult with Attorney Cole, and it is doable. It's not, it's legal to kind of go to a more membership-based module, but we do serve the greater Monona community. There is no doubt about that. And for that's better or worse from the day groups that come in. The thing I think about that is that we get a lot of people on even the bad day, on the rainy days or cool weather days where we have groups that come in. But on hot days, the pool's busy and it's crowded and our residents are probably like, I wish there wasn't so many people here.
Question though, those numbers to reduce the levy, that's not, those numbers would include, like capital replacement of the pool.
No.
No. So if we were to try, because those are some of the questions that we received. And it's like, and I kind of wanted to illustrate that that would be, I mean, at that point, there's probably no point in having a pool, right? Because.
Yeah. New pools are running between $8 and $12 million. And here it's going to be more if we're on the same site because of the environmental challenges that we had with being the old landfill and the remediation and all of that. So a new aquatic facility or an aquatic center, that's for the next director to
Yeah, so you'd probably have to
figure
increase,
out.
you'd probably have to increase those fees again by more than half
Yeah.
again to even try and.
No outdoor pool is funding new pools with
No.
user fees in a segregated account. It's either, fundraising for that sole purpose of construction of a new pool, and then, maybe the operating expenditures can be covered through fees and advertising, et cetera, on an annual basis. But being able to replace the pool entirely on the backs of user fees is not feasible.
Gotcha.
I personally think that raising the fees so much kind of defeats the purpose of having the pool.
I agree.
I mean,
agree.
it needs to be accessible to people.
Right.
And I know and Jake, I'm sure you'd correct me if I'm wrong, but is it not our most diverse program in terms of the people that attend the pool? And
Correct.
I mean, and certainly the seniors that come too. I mean, you know, Diane talks all the time about non-residents going to the senior center because they don't have it. And that adds to the richness and the quality of everybody's experience, you know, so I just think, you know, I would worry about people that, including non-residents, but residents as well, that might not be able to afford the higher fees, and whether or not we could do something to, kind of goes to the question that was asked earlier around if we had it, I think Rick asked, or if we had any kind of a scholarship program or foundation or anything like that. But you know, I'm not saying that we're going to do that. We got our hands full. I'm not saying that we're going to do that right off the bat, but you know, I'd like to see that diversity continue. And frankly, I think, zero interest in being Shorewood. Thank you very much.
Zero interest in what?
Zero interest in being Shorewood.
Right.
Yes.
I would concur with that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see, you know,
Right.
so
Yeah.
people could see.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that I say in, you know, having, you know, budget restrictions as far as levy goes is the balance of the fees allowing us to be able to pay more in wages. And so while I say we don't run, like, that could change, you know, where we fall so far, and we are behind, like, we definitely are behind on wages when you talk about indoor pools. And so while the referendum addressed full-time staff wages, it didn't necessarily address seasonal wages. And so we will continue to advocate for that flexibility in the operating budget to increase the wages that we have for our seasonal employees in order to, you know, attract some of what we would want to say, you know, a level of college student, for example, at the pool versus high school students. And so we have a little bit higher wages in this year's operating budget, which will allow us some flexibility in how we stagger our compensation for those employees. But we'll continue to look at providing that data to this board on what the other pools are paying to be, you know, competitive and comparable. The big thing that we have is just the chemical cost. I have a couple emails with our supplier of chlorine. We use the same amount of water the last couple seasons, and it's a lot. So when we talk about, like, I don't know how much water we use, people, like, we've had complaints with the showers were running or they're not shutting off. I'm like, well, we're using like 1.5 million gallons of water each year at the pool. The pool holds 300,000 gallons, and on a typical pool season, you're cycled through fresh water at least 3 times. When you think about all the kids and people getting out of the pool and the water splashing off the water slide, like 1.5 million gallons. And we've used up to 2 million gallons of water, you know, in the pool basin. And so just water cost, you know, can get expensive. And then the chemicals, the chlorine to, you know, treat that water was insanely high this year. And so we're working on what solutions can be. And that's a new line item that you'll see in this year's budget that wasn't in just straight up chemicals. And that's our 2 main forms of chemicals are acid and chlorine. And that uses to adjust the pH of the water and make sure that we can have the chlorine in the water to fight the germs and all the stuff that you don't want to think about when you get in a public pool.
Well, then those standards are set by the state, right?
Correct, yeah. Part of our licensing is that we have to, you know, maintain proper chemical balance of the
It's
pool.
not like we can just, oh, we'll just won't put as many chemicals in. We have to do what the state mandates to us on that, so.
Nancy?
Yeah, so you just mentioned obviously that you did build in a bit of an increase, but I know, I mean, I can vividly remember one of my first years on the council talking about working our way up to 15 for the lifeguards especially. And I'd be curious to know.
We're not there yet.
We knew we were not going to make a leap. We knew it was going to take years to get there,
Right.
but I'm just curious where we are at this point.
That's a good question. We have different ranges based on experience and the number of hours that you're
Sure.
able to commit to.
Sure.
And so some of our, what we consider head lifeguards, which have some responsibility, they're in that 16 to 18 range.
Yeah.
But our starting lifeguards are still under 15.
Okay.
They're like at 13 to 14 for
Right.
starting.
Right.
And so we'll see what this, each year brings a different, like, oh, Sun Prairie did this, or Middleton did that, and
Right.
now, and really it's Madison. Madison pays a significantly higher wage across the board for seasonal employees, but they also require that you work at the beach, and so you have to take shifts at the beach, which you might be by yourself, and so like, there's like trade-offs that
Yeah.
people have to like use. Indoor pools pay more per hour, but you get less hours scheduled.
Yeah.
And so like, as a seasonal employee here at our pool, you can get 30 to 40 hours a week.
Right.
Which you may not get at some of those other places where you get hired at a higher hour, rate per hour, but you just don't get as many hours.
Initially, I know at one point we were offering the free certification.
We still do that.
We still do
yeah.
that,
Mm-hmm,
which is a good deal.
absolutely.
Don't we run into trouble though, and it's the later half of August where we basically everybody leaves, so we have to offer a little bit more for those people to stay.
Right.
Right, college kids.
Yeah, it gets a little
Yeah, high school
dicey to
kids,
stay,
yeah.
like,
For August, it's hard.
yeah, I mean, I think one of the things when we live here long enough, we don't always realize what's happening in other places. And so in Illinois, pool shut down in like the beginning of August.
Yeah.
Because their schools go back, to August 21st or something like that. And a lot of places in Wisconsin, the vast majority are closing at least a week earlier than what we do, and sometimes two. So it may not seem like, what's the big deal? Well, in the middle of August, when it's 95 degrees out, it's nice to still have that pool open. But there's a lot of places just can't do it, you just don't have the staff.
And you used to be open through Labor Day.
Correct. And that's always a gamble, because you're closing down for 3, 4, or 5 days because you don't have staff, and then reopening for a long weekend. And if it's rain that weekend, you just wasted electricity and chemicals on, a pool that's not open.
I remember a couple years when my kids were real little, it was so hot the first week of school that they would open from like 3:30 to 5:30 after school all week, which was really nice, because there was no air conditioning or anything in that first week of September.
Well, if you have any recently retired friends that want to, I mean, nationally, that is a trend of looking at non-traditional, people to serve as lifeguards. And so as long as you can meet some of the physical, requirements of passing the certification test, we have all sorts of different ages that work at the pool. It's not just students.
Well, and I would say that would be, the pool would be another great video.
Yeah.
Besides, videoing the staff and,
Yeah.
so people can, because I know every time I've been up on the second floor overlooking the pool deck in the summer, especially if it's a day, I'm blown away.
It's packed.
By then, it's packed, and and people are just having such a great time. And our pool, unlike Madison's pool, the Goodman pool, you can't see it from the outside. So you can hear it, if you're at the library or if you're walking around Winnequa Park or whatever, you can hear it, but you don't have that visual to really appreciate, just how much people really enjoy it, and use it, and how diverse, our members, our, pool pass folks are overall, that come day in and day out, if the weather's warm.
Well, any other questions for Jake about the pool?
I was only going to comment that I really enjoyed reading about some long-term goals for overall Park and Rec long-term goals, partnering with One City School. That was really nice to read. I can't say that it's directly related just to the swimming pool, but just Parks and Rec in general. That was nice.
Anyone else? Okay, Jake, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jay.
you.
Can we take a 5-minute break? Would that be
I
all right?
was gonna suggest that, yeah.
Mark's gonna get warmed up anyway, so.
Yeah. There's still more? Yeah.
Mark's.
One real quick.
Well, see that.
Plus several hours.
Yeah, so you don't really control that one, Mark, exactly, so.
Just came across.
Tired.
Oh, we're on track. Yeah, actually.
Listen.
We were on track.
Well, you, schedule on the agenda.
What he's been doing to
Good work,
vet
sir.
people is he's just been
He led an
watching
advocacy
what
group
they're
that's
talking.
sought to
And if they're
asking a question
pro-Trump
about
and they don't say
about
anything
what we
negative,
said, and if, you know,
show.
we need to stop recording. And
Yeah.
everything,
Oh, it's only
and
just
then
starting.
It's just pause, pretty much.
That works,
That's
dude.
it.
Okay, so no one can
Appreciate
do
it.
anything right now?
Revenues first, page
Yeah.
17.
I passed out a sheet that kind of looks like this, just kind of a quick
Oh,
summary of the ones
okay.
that changed. But just in general, on page 17, taxes, other property taxes. So that's like your, that's just your other taxes. So there's two types of personal property tax. One changed in 2018, they made some changes to personal property tax, and they gave us 27,000, and that number hasn't changed since 2023. It'll always be there forever. And there's a new one, it's called Act 13, personal property tax. So no longer somebody gets a tax bill for personal property, so the state gave us aid for that replacement of $102,000. So that's brand new, it's a state law change.
Mark, do you want to explain what you mean by personal property? I think a lot of people aren't aware of that.
So that'd be
tax.
like a WPS, so it'd be like their
It's like businesses?
businesses.
Yeah. I know all about personal property.
Okay.
Yes, like,
So it'd be assets like your tables, your refrigerators.
yep, you get taxed on all the things that you already pay taxes on.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was a big argument, is the double taxation type
Yeah.
argument for some. And so they got rid of that altogether, whatever lobbyists, they took that out, but they found a mechanism to replace that for us. Ours, I guess, was equivalent to 102,000, so that's a brand new number. So that number, we're looking at that page 7, that number is subtracted from last year's property tax. And so I didn't know how to show it in there, but that number, when we looked at the referendum number, I don't know if you remember the sheet I gave from the state, that number gets subtracted. So they take it out of the last year's taxes, so that's why that number doesn't show $3 million.
Okay.
So if I back it out, that out of last year's number, and then you'd see a difference, over $3 million actually. Intergovernment revenues, that's just basically all your state aids. The only thing that really changed is shared revenues, like I said, went up as a sales tax. I did just fire insurance. I went up 4,000. I didn't put it on the sheet, but that went up about $4,000. That's been increasing since 2021, 55,000 to 70,000. That's really because of Jerry. I don't know the reports he fills out, so whatever he's doing on those reports is giving us extra money. So kudos to him on how he's doing it. He showed me one time, but he's just the way he's doing them. He's not doing anything illegal.
Are
He's
these
just
the
doing-
ones from out on the Beltline?
No, this is just state aid.
Oh, okay.
It's a report they got to fill out based on information. So that's increased since 2021.
Which one,
Intergovernment revenues, so
Okay.
fire insurance.
Public-
rates.
oh,
I think
fire-
we're on
fire-
this.
okay.
Yeah. That's all, Jerry's been working with that, and he knows, I think he knows the rules and knows what to hit, things like that, so that's,
But you have different numbers. Oh, that's fire insurance, not fire protection fees, okay.
public safety aid, I did decrease that 25,000. When we talked tomorrow with the chief on Thursday, we did decrease the public safety overtime, just to be more realistic on that. Transportation aid, no change. Exempt computer aid, no change. Those exempt computer aid hasn't changed pre-2021. License and permits, everything's basically the same. I did make an adjustment. Excavation permits, which is basically right-of-way permits. I did decrease that by 10,000 just based on what I know is coming in 2025 and just kind of the current activity. So I adjusted that for this year. Fines and forfeitures. Court penalties, I did decrease it by 20,000. It's just one of those accounts that's, it was a little down in COVID, and it went up 2023, but just based on the current trends and number of tickets written, I think it's going to stay right around the 150 mark. In general, we did increase a little bit the parking violations because they are writing more parking tickets, but the overall, like municipal tickets, they are down. Go to the next page, page 18. Public charges for services, pretty much everything was the same there. The big one I took off was boat launch fees collections. I don't know if you remember how many years ago it was, 4 or 5 years ago. We did a capital borrowing for boat launches, piers. We were short by a large amount, so we took it out of the boat launch fees account. There's a donations account. We have to have a separate account altogether that collects the boat launch fees, and we would transfer the money in to the general fund to help cover like park services. Until I zeroed it out to 5,000 this year, until we officially paid that loan back, and then eventually put it back. Right now, they owe us 40,000, the general fund. So I just want that to get paid back, and then in a couple of years, we'll put that back in there, and I'll start generating money again. It's also down anyways, just in general, because I don't think everybody's heard, we used to have Ace Hardware years ago, before the changeover. They used to collect all our boat launch, and that dramatically changed, and we don't receive very much anyways in revenue. So I zeroed that out until we can pay that back.
People just launch and stiff us? I mean, does Jake have a sense of how many people go down there and actually don't pay, or is it?
Yeah, so I'll bring it to the next meeting. So there's a different account where that money goes into.
Yeah.
By state law, we have to put it into this donation. It's 800 trust account, it's called. So we get about 20,000, and then we have about 5,000 expenses each year. So right now, I'm just taking the difference be 15,000. We just want to pay that loan off quicker and get that out taken care of. But it has dramatically gone down because we used to have Ace Hardware store.
Right.
And they used to collect all of it for us. And now we don't have a vendor that helps us anymore.
People can buy them elsewhere.
They can buy them anywhere.
Yeah.
Like Walmart, we talked to Walmart, he's talked to Quick Trip, he's tried a lot of places, he just can't find a vendor that's.
So people are buying.
But they're just buying from a different.
They're buying
community.
launch permits, they're just not buying them
From
Buying
us.
through the city.
Madison or somewhere
Right.
else.
And we're not exactly actively trying to do enforcement either.
Right.
We don't really have staff resources to do, which if
Right.
we, at
Well,
some
that's a
point,
different story, yeah.
we are looking at some things with our code enforcement officer in terms of maybe doing some things and getting some little extra hours, stop them down there one day on a, nice summer day, just hang out for a day and see so I mean, there are some things
There
we're looking
is.
to maybe take some.
We had a
improve
retired
that.
police officer, she retired probably 3 or
Mhm.
4 years ago, and that was one of the things she did. She worked the weekends, she was down there, boat launches those weekends. The other big change in miscellaneous revenues is the interest account. I did probably dramatically drop it a little bit. I know the rates they're coming, and I kind of want preparing us for the future, so I did drop it as long as we had the money right now to do it. Interest rate's probably going to be a little over. It'll probably still be over 100,000, but I'm just kind of preparing for the future on that. That was my rationale for doing that.
But doesn't it seems like maybe you were aggressively
cautious?
conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, there's probably wiggle room there.
Yeah, cut it in
It's-
half, seems like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, eventually each year, we're going to be dropping it, we'll drop it again.
Yeah.
So they do it one time or do it each year.
I mean, the year-end estimated for this year is 300,000.
300,000.
So it's way over this year's budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
The transfers are all the same, and these transfers from other funds, it's kind of like we talked about, like the water and sewer utilities, stormwater utilities, kind of, so we bill people for like, especially utilities, garage rentals, space in the city building, we kind of break, it's all what those numbers are made up of. We bill for insurance, we bill for other stuff. So that's what the water and sewer, main water utility, sewer utility, stormwater. So that's a lot of those charges. I've seen with like cable and things, we do charging for other things, the library. With that. Tourism, the number I talked about, I'll make that adjustment for the library. So right now we're grandfathered in at 157,000. We automatically get that. But because of all the excess money we're receiving in the room tax, we can go to the 80-20 split, and we make more money that way, and it looks like we're going to head that way. Because even looking at 2023, we did go over the 157, just based on the current numbers. We'll probably get the same, probably close to 187,000, so that's where I would make that adjustment. We talked about the library. So I'll bring a budget amendment for that. The more I start digging into that, it looks like it's going to be consistent right around that number. for the
Mark, is that
future.
80/20 or is it 70/30?
70/30.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So we can either keep the grandfathered number or
Larger of the two.
or 70/30,
Yeah.
we get the 70.
So if you get another hotel, I
No,
mean,
we
you
get the
get
30.
one more hotel comes in, you get 30% of that next hotel. I mean, that's all coming to the city. Because we're at the max right now.
Well, it seems like if we can take more, we should.
I mean, we'll get it anyways. It's,
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's just-
but if you get another hotel, I mean, that's just gonna be even more money, 30% of whatever. You know, Abbott's our biggest money maker.
why did I think that when there were future new hotels, all of it went to the tourism fund?
Well, it's because, we, at the time, probably was thinking we weren't over that grandfathered amount.
Oh, okay.
So now we're over the grandfathered
Okay.
amount. You take the higher up
Okay,
two.
that makes sense.
So any new hotel now is way over that, so you get 30%. So if it's 100,000 in tax, you get 30,000.
That'd be good.
So that's all for revenues. Oh, I don't know what happened to me and Leah. There was one mistake in here. But all the numbers are fine on the front pages, summaries. So I handed out a new page like this. If you notice, I made an X. It's supposed to be in here for the fund balance applied. It's supposed to be 200,000. But it's all included already in all the summaries. It's just she forgot to print my page for this, page 18. So it is in there, it's all in there, so, but
Oh, I see.
she didn't print, she printed the ones we thought we changed, and this was one that we forgot to print off. So this is the actual
So on page 18, there should
Right.
be a...
$200,000 for fund balance.
So the total should be 516,415 also.
And that's included, that's already included, I triple checked, it's all included in
Okay.
the summary stuff.
So Mark, what is that 200,000 for?
Fund balance applied, so I use some fund balance to use to offset the debt service.
So does that mean that we have a $200,000 surplus?
Yeah, it means we're still above the 21%, so that's why, or 20%, that's why I use it. From last, I mean, when I ran the numbers for, what our fund balance number, I don't remember the exact number, I can get that. And I subtracted out 200,000, we were still above our 20% number, so that's why I used it.
So is that what we're putting to debt service?
Yeah, I would think
Right.
so.
Right, but that's coming out of this year's
Yeah.
operating budget. So
Yeah.
in effect, we have a $200,000 surplus
Surplus,
at the end, okay.
Next is debt service. This is why we had to use it.
149.
So there's two debt services, a library expansion debt service. That's all paid off. That's all that. It's done. So general debt service, we did, so we are using a lot of money here. We did transfer money from the general fund, 254,000. Fund balance applied is almost 600,000. And you see the principal and interest did go up a lot. We would have probably refinanced some of these loans to make this number a lot lower. There's one that was coming up that we was planned on, but the rates are too high to refinance it, so we figured the best thing to do is just use the fund balance to plug it with that. So there is plenty of money in the fund balance of the debt service. That's where that money's coming from. I don't know if you remember we borrow for premiums. So premiums, when we borrow loan, I remember when Jeff talks about premiums, a lot of times it's a huge number, and if you remember that. So that technically goes to the debt service to use for your debt payment, so that's a lot of it's just premiums that we have this fund balance number applied. Majority
Oh,
of
that's where the fund balance money's coming from, is these premiums?
premiums, and when we borrow like a debt, we borrow a loan, I don't know if you remember a lot of it, we're getting a lot of premiums, and so that premium goes into the debt service fund to offset your next debt payment, so that's where a lot of that's coming from.
Is that like amounts people are willing to pay
Yeah.
in order,
to get the,
To buy our bonds.
to buy our bonds.
Because they're desirable.
They pay them over the market value. They get
Right.
to, yeah. So. And TIFs, go to the next pages.
That's 150, yeah.
TIFs are pretty straight, these are all TIFs are really straightforward. Just so you know where that, so TIF 150, TIF 4, you see this tax increment, 990,000. That number comes from, it's a formula, it comes from, shoot, didn't go through. I got to adjust it, she didn't print those off. But I'll have to readjust these. So they're supposed to come from page 10, that's how they calculated the increment. So TIF 4 should be 968,000, TIF 5 is 496,000, TIF 6, so on, as you can see down. TIF 5, as you know, I don't know if you'll notice, the increment has gone down on that one, when you compare 24 to 25. And I knew this, and the assessors finally caught it. Same with TIF 8. So TIF 5, TIF 4 is, so you know, is Monona Drive, basically Broadway to Nichols. TIF 5 is what they consider the old Garden Circle heritage. So they have been recording that as a market value. It was supposed to be at basically affordable housing, and they never caught that until the assessors never. They didn't. I didn't realize it either. The Heritage never caught it, or either their assessors. It was being original assessment was at market value. It wasn't supposed to be at market value. So that's why
Which isn't good, right?
it was finally.
Considered affordable housing?
For senior.
Yeah, because
Senior
that's
housing.
section
They got
48 or
tax credits for it.
Yeah, the tax credits for memory units and all that stuff.
So you're saying the 2025 number's accurate, but the previous years are inflated?
Well, they paid on market value. They can't go back at us. So
Right, but I'm just,
yeah.
it's not so much that, yeah, I mean,
They were going to assess the market value. It should have been actually affordable housing value, whatever that tax credit.
I mean, I would have thought it would have dropped more, really. I
Right,
mean, that's
yeah,
not
exactly.
not a huge drop
Exactly.
for,
TIF 6 is UW and Meriden Clinic area, so that's actually going to be the Whitehorse and North Point. So that number will go up in the future, but that was a large increase there. TIF 7 roughly stayed the same. That is properties we own now, and then the vacant property where, it's the old UW Clinic, what's it, Fairway
It's
Glen.
Fairway Glen, right?
yeah.
TIF 8,
And there's a new project going in.
yeah, TIF 8 is the old Tresta there. And then TIF 9 is the current. So in these TIF 4, 5, I don't know how much detail you want to go into, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's really just the revenue there, and then a little bit of the personal property tax and exempt computer rate, and then whatever the principal interest on each year. It varies from the repayment schedules. So there. TIF 9 does show salaries, and that's where planner salaries are in, right there, on page 152. I don't know if you have questions on the TIFs. Concerns.
I don't have a question, I just wanted to share something, like, so on TIF 5, where you were commenting about how the 2025 value was correct, but the previous years were perhaps
Probably inflated a little bit.
miscalculated, they were overinflated.
Yeah.
And now what we're looking at is the assessment on affordable housing development. Whereas earlier, we were looking at the assessment on market value housing.
Yeah.
And my colleague Doug says, I would have thought the 2025 number would have been lower. So what does that say, right? I mean,
It all depends how the
do you know what I'm
assessors look
saying?
at it.
It's
Yeah.
like, people worry about affordable housing, and how the numbers come together and whether it's possible. And
Yeah.
so I don't know what can be gleaned from this little interesting mistake here. It just,
Well, it's
My
just,
understanding with Heritage is that
Part of it is.
it's a fraction.
it's a part of it, yeah, so that's why it's not as
True.
big of a
Okay,
drop.
okay.
So it's not as
Okay.
big of a drop.
fair enough.
But it is, there
That
is a
ex-
big issue. I mean,
That
there
ex-
is,
Well, yeah,
That
they use Section
explains
42
it.
tax credits.
Yeah.
So it's,
Okay.
part of it is, part of it is, I mean, but that's where the drop
a
is.
certain amount of units are available for people at certain incomes.
Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
so- Yeah, so North Point will be, you know, it is an issue people talk, it's really how the state is kind of screwed over communities, if I start to use that word, but, you know,
It's too
it is,
much.
if you
Yet
want really
another
affordable
way.
housing, it is, I mean, it is a big deal, because North Point probably, if you look at the construction, is, I'm just gonna say it's close to probably 20 million, if I heard
Yeah.
20, 21 million dollars, it's probably gonna be assessed at $8 million, from what I've heard. But all the tax credits, it's a, you know, in the requirements, but it's nothing assessors can do, they gotta,
Right.
but that's the state forcing them to net new construction,
Mhm.
and that's, unfortunately, it's
Mhm.
sad, but that's, all communities are running into that discussion when you talk about market rate versus affordable housing.
Will they assess at the construction number the first year and then adjust it for income after that, or no?
No, they will adjust it the first year.
So there's
Fair
really
question,
no
though.
incentive to use good quality materials.
Well, I mean,
Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, a lot of times, you know, like, they'll build it exactly the same as they will build
Yeah.
in the market rate. There's
Right,
no
yeah.
there's
difference.
no difference.
Right.
There really isn't.
No, I think they still
And
have quality.
and one of the reasons they do that is, for some reason, it decides to go from one to the other, for, you know, one doesn't work out, and they
Oh,
want,
sure. Yeah.
they can, there's
Yeah.
zero transition, it's the
Yeah.
same product. So, I mean, it's just, it's easier, it's easier and simpler for the builder and the developer, even if they've got a mix of units, to build them all the same. It's just, it's in their interest, it's easier
And it's-
from a construction standpoint to just build them as you're gonna build them.
Yeah.
Right.
And you
It's
don't want
easier.
to
Yeah.
say, oh, well, you're the affordable housing person, so we're going to put you in this
Right.
housing area.
No, yeah, I
Yeah.
get that, I
Yeah.
get that, I get that.
Yeah,
It's only
yeah.
guaranteed
That's why those
to
units
be
are portable, too.
affordable for a certain amount of time, right?
Is it
It's
15
not-
years or something? Is that?
Yeah, the life of the
related to
tax
credits?
credit, whatever
Usually the
that,
tax credits are 30 years.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, that doesn't make, I mean, the state really made it hard for that conversation.
Well, and part of the problem is then it makes it difficult for us to give TIF
Yeah.
dollars, right? Because it doesn't
Right.
generate
Doesn't generate
enough
stuff.
Right.
Exactly there.
increment to repay the
Right.
the TIF
The
loan, yeah.
It becomes a philosophy decision.
Mhm.
And all the other TIFs we created are not in here, right?
Current ones are not, they're not been officially approved yet,
Oh,
so, from the state.
They'll be certified by the state, yeah. They need, they still need to be certified by
When
the
will that
Department of
happen?
Revenue.
got
Should
it.
happen soon.
Yeah,
But there'd be no increment.
right. They'll be established as their base year. So, no increment for year one.
Any other questions for Mark?
Were you gonna talk about the Parkland Fund, or is that a different night?
It's a different
No.
thing. Well, if someone's on me, I probably shouldn't have jailed. We can talk about what people want to talk about now.
Well, I had heard we just got a check recently
Yeah.
for it.
From the
Yeah, we
Bloom,
did.
was it?
Yeah, the balloon, yeah. It's the next page, that's why I asked.
Yeah, if it's just on the next agenda, we should probably address it there, Mark.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have an estimate 200,000, I think the estimate's going to be 300,000.
okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, we just got the balloon check.
We got the bloom.
Balloon is all their construction stuff is. Permits are all-
The apartments are all full?
Permits are all.
Oh, geez, I was like, what did you just say?
Although they'll probably fill pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we meet again on Thursday at 5:30, I assume. A couple people asked me today if there's going to be food, and I assume there will be
Yep.
on Thursday as well. And, yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say. Anybody have any other questions?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
it's funny how we have more money to talk about